Guess who's Blizzak? Salute to everyone in the building. If you can hear me, please press a 1. Let me just ensure that everything is doing good. Okay, everything seems all right. Please press a 1 if you're in the building. If everything's good, we can proceed, man. So salute to everyone who's come through. Again, welcome to another Tuesday evening self-refinement live stream. Well, that's what we usually call them, right? I need to make a presence, man, because it's been a while sitting behind the avatar. So salute to you guys. Good to see everyone in the building. I'm already seeing good points being made. I appreciate the ones, Diego Harry in the building, J African 5 in the building. Salute. I appreciate that, using the wireless mic, so it can be a little bit shady sometimes, but it's all looking good. So, originally I wanted to call this live stream why shouldn't Black British people be proud of being British, right? But then I realized that I think why can't Black British people be proud to be British? Because there's an air of there seems to be like a code of conduct involved with these type of decisions, right? With these types of opinions, So it almost seems like we have to ask the question. Do you know what I mean? Salute. I'm going to get to everyone in the chat. Salute to everyone in the building. But needless to say, man, I haven't, spent a long time. I haven't really planned this live. This is just a genuine, legit question posed to people who might want to jump on the panel. It's going to be an open panel if you want to jump on and air your view. Okay. But the reason why I think of this title and this topic is because there is still backlash over the whole Just Purdy thing situation issue, right? And the outcome seems to be a rift between Black Americans and Black British. So I think this was a very poignant question to ask Black British people in general, right? So in this stream, basically, I'm going to go through some basic Black British history, the history of Black people in the UK, right? We'll understand that there are some people who were here from back in the day who we might not know of, okay? Some brief general demographic information, stuff that isn't new. And we'll briefly touch on some racial discrimination as well, because I believe that is a reason why a lot of people might feel some sense of shame when it comes to identifying as Black British, right? With your hand in your chest, right? So then hopefully we'll get people in the panel. Again, I know it's a bit later than I usually want to do these streams, but I appreciate everyone coming in. Okay, hopefully we can get a panel going of Black British people. Other people are welcome to air their views and their opinions, as long as they're respectful. So that is the gist of the live stream. Should we be, basically full-on patriots, or are we made to feel ashamed for thinking in that manner? And is this shame induced because of racists or because of other Black people's idea of nationality and identification? Okay, so this is the main topic for tonight. All right, let me just big up everyone in the building, man. First in the building was Diego Harry, aka Diego Ether, man. Salute to you, bro. Good to see you in the building. And we made not jest, we appreciate the new avatar, bro. He's looking like a fighter pilot. We see those. What are they? What are those? What are those glasses called that fighter pilots wear? We see the. Does it begin with A? I forget. But salute to Diego Harry in the building, man. Looking sharp. We got Right Reaction 77 in the building. They say something meaningful. I assume to the title they say because most will disagree. Okay, most will disagree with black people identifying as British. Okay, Moonshine 99 in the building. He says we have too many battles to fight in regards to race in a place we're supposed to call home. That's interesting. The reason why that's interesting is because, again, with this whole kind of rift between black Americans and black British, there seems to be elements of pride amongst black Americans, right? And some of the xenophobic dialogue, you can see like there is hallmarks of pride, right? So if they can express those thoughts and feelings, then it's an honest question to ask: why can't black British people do the same? Right? J African 5 in the building. We got V Dub Boogie in the building. Radical Normie says, good question, right reaction. What is a black British person? That is a good question indeed. V Dub Boogie says, not a rift between the FBA and the black Brits, just a difference that we tend not to understand. Hey, that's appreciated. I understand that. And we're going to get through some basic black British history, okay? So we might understand better with regards to our different opinions and thought processes, right? Because at the moment, we're called Teffers, we're called Badgers, right? We're called bootlickers. So hopefully this stream can shed light on some things. We've got Ephraim Ackworth in the building. What's up? Salute to you, bro. Good to see you in the building. Yeah, aviators, those big glasses, man. Aviators. Yeah, that's it. There you go, looking sharp, boy. Salute. Good to see it. Captain Toast in the building. Salute to you, bro. Good to see you in here. We got a J Kwame 79 in the building. Good to see you, bro. Okay, so as you all know, it's going to be a panel, so feel free to jump on. The links are actually already pinned to the top of the chat and in the description. So if anyone wants to make their way with their thoughts and opinions, feel free to. As I said that, we got someone already in the back chat, so salute to you. Okay. So a few things, these discussions usually take place in the Discord, Self-Refinement City. The links are underneath the description of the video. Will be pinned to the first comment as well. So check it out if you want to be in the know, kept up to date. I've got more videos planned, man. I've just been, I guess, in a little bit of malaise with content. I've got a few things like I want to do like a summer cut vlog, right? So how to be lean for the summer. I want to go back to my self-refinement, self-improvement staples type of stuff, man. Sometimes all this, I'm just keeping it 100. All this blackity black stuff can weigh down, man, because it can be depressive, right? I know I'm trying to do a fusion of both, but sometimes it's not as stimulating, to be honest with you, okay? But that's just an update. But hopefully with these streams every Tuesday, I've been somewhat consistent or consistent enough to warrant some sponsorship. So if you want to support these streams and my channel, feel free to like, comment your thoughts in the comment section below this video, as well as in the live chat if you're in the building. Most people will view it after the live, so comment your thoughts. What do you think on this topic? Feel free to super chat or super thanks if you can, only if you can. Okay. Although I'm of Nigerian descent, I'm not begging. People assume or think that I'm begging. I'm not begging, but the option's there, okay? So I appreciate that anyway. But again, the topic idea is with what's going on, we started with the whole issue with Pearly Things, man. And you know what, with Pearly Things, and I don't like talking on it, like I said in the last stream, because it's kind of like gossipy tea type of content, which is like, it's just a waste of time, right? It's just a moment in time that's going to be blown away. It's going to be forgotten about, right? So I didn't want to dwell on that. I didn't want to put all the, the tags and all of that, or just Pearly Things. I don't care about it, to be honest. But what got my interest was the aftermath, which ends up with two black groups going at it, right? And it seems to be one side more so than the other, right? And I'm sure we're all familiar with the situations that's caused that. So, there's been some sense of xenophobia towards the Black British peoples, right? And it is what it is. But I think it's important to understand that, and it's always been important to know that we are different people. This whole idea of being black consciousness is not always prevailing, right? And is not an accurate identifier for a large groups of people, particularly Black British people. So I find it always strange that we've got a lot of people who want to shun people having distinct or different points of view. Do you know what I mean? So this is what kind of spun this talking point out for us to discuss. Brits, not brutes. Who is calling black brutes tethers? That's a funny play on words. But okay, so I'm gonna jump into avatar mode for a sec because I just wanna. I know some of you don't think highly of the Wikipedia, but hey, I think, like I was saying in the Self-Empowerment City, I think this article has a good basis for a basic understanding of Black British people. So I'm not going to go through everything. I'm going to go through key points like the historic, like the historic points where Black people came to the UK, historic people, and brief demographics. And I've also got just one more article to talk about with regards to racism. Okay. So it will be brief. But again, if you want to jump on with your own points of view, because we're going to extend this talking point, feel free to prepare what you think or what you feel on the issue, on the situation, and get ready to hop on. But let me just, I think I just need a little back to go through this a little bit. Again, it helps with the retention, I guess. Okay. So this is the Wikipedia article for Black British people, okay? Again, I'm reading this because I'm just giving you a brief history, a brief summary. A lot of us, including myself, to be honest with you, there's a lot of situations, a lot of the history, a lot of the people that I'm ignorant to or ignorant of, right? So I think this might be worthwhile. So Black British people are a multi-ethnic group of British citizens of either African or Afro-Caribbean descent. The term Black British developed in the 50s, referring to the Black British West Indian people from the former Caribbean British colonies in the West Indies, now referred to as the Windrush generation. Okay, we all know about the Windrush. And people from Africa who are residents of the United Kingdom and are British. The term Black has historically had a number of applications as a racial and political label, and may be used in a wider socio-political context to encompass a broader range of non-European ethnic minority populations in Britain. Okay, so names such as BAME, right? Sometimes it includes Asian peoples. Okay, Black residents constituted around 3% of the United Kingdom's population in 2011. Okay, the figures have increased from 1991. Almost 97% of Black Britons live in England, okay, particularly in England's larger urban areas, with most over 1 million Black British living in Greater London, okay, the capital city. Okay, so again, I'm going to hit some of the brief points, okay, mainly to do with the history. The reason why I'm talking about the history, because it's something that's often, we don't understand or we don't really know the history of Black people in the UK. So I think it's substantial with this whole question, okay? Okay, we've got more historical uses. But let's go to history, antiquity, okay? There is evidence of people with African, largely North African ancestry in Roman Britain. A craniometric study of 22 individuals from Southwark, Roman London, found that 4 of them appeared to be of likely African ancestry, An isotopic analysis of their bones suggested childhoods spent in a climate warmer than Roman Britain. Okay, so basically they're saying there's evidence of black people inhabiting Roman London. Okay, so there is some debate whether these were Berber, like the current Northern Africans, right? But some were the upper echelons, somewhat in the upper echelons of society. However, the population of these regions were largely Berber people rather than black sub-Saharan Africans. It makes sense because the Roman Empire was expanded to Northern Africa, right? Like Tunisia, I think Carthage, them areas, okay? But according to the Augustan history, North African Roman Emperor Septimus Severus supposedly visited Hadrian's Wall in 2010 AD. While returning from an inspection of the wall, he was said to have been mocked by an Ethiop, quote unquote, okay? So we know Ethiop or Ethiopian is talking about someone with dark skin or sunburnt skin. An Ethiop soldier holding a garland of cypress boughs. Severus ordered him away, reportedly being frightened by his dark skin color and seeing his act and appearance as an omen. The Ethiop is written to have said, "You have been all things, you have conquered all things, now, O conqueror, be a god." Okay, so, just some little excursion where this Roman emperor saw a black person in England, okay? Anglo-Saxon England. A girl buried at Updown near Eastry in Kent in the early 7th century was found to have 33% of her DNA of West African type, most closely resembling Asan or Yoruba groups. In 2013, a skeleton was discovered in Fairford, Gloucestershire, which forensic anthropology revealed to be that of a sub-Saharan African woman. Her remains have been dated between the years 896 and 1025. Local historians believe she was likely either a slave or a bonded servant. Okay, so lots of instances of servants being brought to the UK. But as we were reading a bit, now we're going to the 16th century, which is very key. We'll see that it's not just servants. There's a lot of people who are associated with the royal families, okay? Excuse me. So 16th century, early in the 16th century, Catherine of Aragon likely brought servants from Africa among her retinue when she traveled to England to marry Arthur, Prince of Wales. She would go on to marry his younger brother, Henry VIII. Okay, we all know Henry VIII, famous wives and executions. I was actually at his palace last weekend. A black musician is among 6 trumpeters depicted in the royal retinue of Henry VIII in the Westminster Tournament Roll. Okay, so this picture in the middle, that's the black trumpeter. Yeah, that's it, Jesse. You remind me, Hampton Court. That's it. Right down by what's that place, man? Hampton Court. But yeah, here we can see pictured the black trumpeter for King Henry VIII. He wears the royal livery and is mounted on horseback. The man is generally identified as the John Blanc, the black trumpeter, who is listed in the payment accounts of both Henry VIII and his father, Henry VII. A group of Africans at the court of James IV of Scotland included Elaine Moore and a drummer referred to as the Moore Torbrona. Both he and John Blanc were paid wages for their services. Okay, and this is cited. A small number of black Africans worked as independent business owners in London in the late 1500s, including the silk weaver, Reasonable Black Man. Okay, so there's companies going far back into the 16th century. Okay. So let's see, where are you? Another good point. During the later 16th century, as well as into the first 2 decades of the 17th century, 25 people named in the records of the small parish of St. Botolph's in Aldgate are identified as blackamoors. Okay, it seems like another term for black people. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. In the period of the war with Spain between 1588 and 1604, there was an increase in the number of people reaching England from Spanish colonial expeditions in parts of Africa. The English freed many of these captives from enslavement on Spanish ships. They arrived in England largely as a byproduct of the slave trade. Some were of mixed race African and Spanish and became interpreters or sailors. American historian Ira Berlin classified such persons as Atlantic Creoles, or the charter generation of slaves and multi-racial workers in North America. Okay, so a lot of links with slavery and slave trade. Slaver John Hawkins arrived in London with 300 captives from West Africa. However, the slave trade did not become entrenched until the 17th century, and Hawkins only embarked on 3 expeditions. Okay, we all know about the slave trade, but I think the most important part so far in this article was stuff in the 16th century, right? So, black people being paid wages, so being involved in cultural affairs, okay? Let's go on. So, let's see. Blackamoor servants were perceived as a fashionable novelty and worked in the households of several prominent Elizabethans, including that of Queen Elizabeth I, William Poe, Francis Drake, and Anne of Denmark in Scotland. Among these servants was John Come Quick, a blackamoor, so a black person, servant to Captain Thomas Love. Others included in parish registers include Domingo, a black negro servant unto Sir William Winter. These sounds like official titles. Buried the 27th day of August. Okay, so these are a lot of slavery and servitude. Okay. The African population may have been several hundred during the Elizabethan period, and historian Michael Ward noted that Africans in England were mostly free. Okay, that's a key point. Africans in England were mostly free, and both men and women married native English people. Archival evidence shows records of more than 360 African people between 1500 to 1640 in England and Scotland. Reacting to the darker complexion of people with biracial parentage, George Best argued in 1578 that black skin was not related to the heat of the sun in Africa, but was instead caused by a biblical damnation. So remember the curse of Ham. Reginald Scott noted that superstitious people associated black skin with demons and ghosts. Writing in his book, quote unquote, but in our childhood, our mother's maids have so terrified us with an ugly devil having horns on his head and a tail in his breech. Eggs like a basin, fangs like a dog, claws like a bear, a skin like a nigger. Okay, this is Latin. And a voice roaring like a lion. So basically superstitions against black people. Okay. That's relevant too, I guess. So, when it comes to how people took to black people and, them being natives, them being English, of course, there's a lot of superstition. And of course, that curse of Ham seems to play a big part in how people were seen. Okay. I'm going to come to the chat in a sec. I just want to get this out as an opener, and I'm going to just open up the line straight away. Okay. In 1596, Queen Elizabeth I issued letters to the Lord Mayors of major cities asserting that of late, divers blackamoors brought into this realm, of which kind of people there are already here to many. I think that's Old English to say there's too many black people in the UK, right, or in England, sorry. While visiting the English court, Caspar van Senden, a German merchant from Lubeck, requested the permission to transport blackamoors living in England to Portugal or Spain, presumably to sell them there. Elizabeth subsequently issued a royal warrant to Van Senden, granting him the right to do so. However, Van Senden and Shirley did not succeed in this effort, as they acknowledge in correspondence with Sir Robert Cecil. In 1601, Elizabeth issued another proclamation expressing that she was I quote, highly discontented to understand a great number of Negroes and blackamoors, which, as she is informed, are carried into this realm. And again, licensing Van Sanden to deport them. Her proclamation of 1601 stated that the blackamoors were fostered and powered her to the great annoyance of the Queen's own liege people that covet the relief which those people consume. So she's basically saying the black presence is a nuisance to her people, to her and her people. It further stated that most of them are infidels, having no understanding of Christ or his gospel, so more superstition, right? So the key points, I guess, is that while there have been, African black presence in the UK, they have not been met with open arms. There's been a lot of abrasion, a lot of, a lack of acceptance, basically. Okay, so it's going on to talk about the slave trade, and we all know about the slave trade, but let's see a few notable people. Okay, so this is a portrait of a black woman and a white woman by unknown artist in around 1650. The two women, who appear to be of equal standing, are wearing face patches which were a fashion of the time. The painting is captioned, "Eye black with white, the spot white with blacker. This evil proceeds from thy proud heart, and take her, devil." Okay, this is some old English. We need some natives to decode this. But here we can see, because usually the art, right, especially when we go deeper into the transatlantic slave trade, the art becomes more, the black people in the art becomes more of a servitudinal manner, right? In positions looking like apes or porch monkeys. It seems like it was a different appeal or different visage back in the day. A 1651 painting of Scottish noblewoman Elizabeth Maitland with her black servant. Okay. In this picture, we have an engraving which shows a black London resident on the left. So it seems to be hugging up with a let's call her Rebecca in the corner. Okay. What else can we take from this? But I just thought this was a good article. A basic article, but it has a good deal of things to take from it. So such as this guy, a very noteworthy black British person, a composer and shopkeeper, Ignatius Sancho, was the first black person of African origins to vote in parliamentary elections and became a symbol of the humanity of Africans and the immorality of the slave trade. Okay, and again, look, man, I'm not a historian, but it's almost as if I can't really see people talking about this stuff, man. So it's like I have to bring it up, but I'm sure if people want to come on, you would know much more than what I do. We've got more black people here. Pablo Francu, a celebrated circus owner, okay, Victorian Britain. Many boxers, right? We've got a portrait of the London-born boxer James Wharton in 1839. It looks like someone I know, man. It looks like, is that Adewale? It looks like, oh yeah, we can zoom. It looks like a brother. So some familiar faces. She's probably a noteworthy person, Sarah Forbes Bonetta, apparently a West African princess and goddaughter to Queen Victoria, orphaned in intertribal warfare, given as a gift to Queen Victoria. Okay, so, even though as a quote-unquote gift, which was quite normal back in those days, right? Spoils of war and such, but a lot of black people being brought into royal households. Okay, We've got a black Dutch merchant, seaman eating something in London in June 1943. You know, so it's a good article, basic, but hey, it's a good starting point for anyone who's interested. Let me paste the link here. So the point in just reading this article is just to briefly summarize that there have been history of black people in the UK at least some time before the transatlantic slave trade, right? Let me switch the beat for a sec, man. Let me come back onto the cam. Okay, so that's basically the point of reading this article. Let me stop that. Let me see what you're saying in the chat. Let me firstly salute Captain Tolson for the 999 super chat, man. I really appreciate the support, the first show of support of the night. And again, I need to work on my sound effects, but yeah, this should have been a relaxed live stream. You know, I didn't really plan much into it, but I think it's a question that we should really be asking, right? Something that we need to do. So salute to Captain Tolson in the building. Let me see what people are saying in the chat. KB Jones in the building says, please get the likes up. Salute to you, KB Jones. Yes, indeed. Please like the video. The link's pinned to the top of the chat, and the link is also in the description. And I think this live stream is probably also inspired by KB Jones' live stream last night. He was talking about whether black British people should emigrate, right? So I think it's something that is always in the atmosphere when it comes to black British people, right? And our close links to our parents' country, you know. Let me see what people say in the chat. Diego Harry is saying Royal Navy were the liberating force. Diego says, yeah, Blackamoor means West African black person. We've got Quincy82 in the building, another content creator. He says, I'm proud to be British. Hey, salute to that. You know. Okay, Ethiop means black person. Yep. Salute to Blaze in the building. Salute to you. We got new people in the back. Aiden, salute to you, bro. But I'm just gonna need you to cam up for a sec in the back. No one can see you, but I just need to make sure you're not a troll. And unfortunately, here we have to deal with a lot of trolls. So, you know, people in the back, we're gonna discuss it straight out of the bat. There's no need for me to be long-winded. Let's see what you have to say. And I'm gonna leave most of my opinions or thoughts when we discuss or when we have the discourse, right? Because I don't want to override any people's opinion. You know, my views might carry weight as this is my channel, right? But I want us to just express how we feel. So what we, you know, talking points of this panel should be, why aren't we allowed, if that is a theme or a thing, why aren't we allowed to be proud to be black and British? You know, why isn't that choice available? Right? Because again, we have some history here, but it seems like over time, the legacy doesn't remain strong, right? We got queens, we got royal people, to be fair, who are asking for these black people to be deported, right? We got, you know, obviously racist, white supremacists on the, you know, doing their rounds. Okay, Aiden, you don't have a webcam, but yeah, please come up because I'm not allowing any potential trolls in the building. I don't have the patience today. Yeah, when you come up in the back, I will let you on, bro. Oh yeah, I wanted to show another article, man. I'm a little bit sidetracked, but I think during opening thoughts, you know, during the discussion, I'll put up the article, which is basically talking about Britain not close to being a racially just society, right? There's been a 2-year research project which came with some results and quite interesting looking bar charts that indicate that, hey, Britain is not welcoming of black people, but that'll be another discussion. But salute to everyone in the panel, salute to everyone in the chat. Feel free to jump on. If I know you, if you're new, you're gonna have to show your cam. Links pinned to the top of the chat. Feel free to put your points of view in the live chat as well. Very important. We got Captain Tolson. He says a black person can't be British. Ooh, but you know what? That could be true. But for a person, again, this is the theme of the topic. A black person who comes to you and says, "Hey, man, I'm black and British," like Quincy was in the building, right? I'm black and British. I think for me, I just want to see respect in people's discernment and how people make their decisions, right? At the moment, what I see is just shaming. You don't identify in this way, so therefore you're not black enough. You're a bootlicker because you're like, this is what we need to get to the crux of. So without being long-winded, man, Aiden, can you do that again? Because your quarter of your head, I only saw a quarter of your head. So if you're serious, put your whole face on the cam, man. Let's not play games today. Okay? But salute to JM Talks channel in the building and Diego If in the building. Salute. Absolutely not, man. You're a troll. We're gonna kick you. No thanks. No thanks. No thanks. But salute to, we got the usual suspects in the building. Salute to you, brothers. Let's go with JM first. With your general viewpoints, just to answer the direct question, I guess, why can't black British people be proud and, proud of being British? Are you proud of being British? If so, why is that? So salute to JM. How are you doing this evening, first of all, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Just been very busy. I actually quit gaming, but that's a video that's going to come up soon. I already put out a video talking about algorithmic desensitization. But regarding this topic, I will say that, in my opinion, a black person can be British, right? Well, to be honest, it's actually fact. If you literally could, check out for yourself in terms of British, right? You're either a national or a native, right? So by default, if you're one of those two things, you are basically a British person. You're basically British, right? So that's just really that, right? And I'm just talking about specifically British culture, because then you could look at other cultures, like, say, maybe Japan. They talk about how you could be a citizen of Japan, but you're still not Japanese, right?
So like they got those what are they, the steam rooms, or they got these
the gaijin.
Right, yeah, no foreigners allowed because this is a right.
Right, so that's true. Think then you could say, like, for example, English people, right? English people, I would say, is like a group or ethnic group of people, from the nation, right? So it's a bit, I don't know, maybe like, because I'm born here, does that make me a native? Maybe, but I am English. So you see, there's a bit of a confusion there, but in my opinion, I think I am English and I am also British because I was born here. So technically, if I'm born here, I'm technically a native. Right? So that's just really that. Yeah, it's confusing. But in regards of let's just say why can't black, British people be proud and to be British? Yeah, they could, of course they could be proud. But then you have a conflict of, let's say you have a conflict where, say for example, you have a parent that was from, say, an African country or Caribbean country, and
Mm-hmm.
you know the history of how, let's say, the British affected that country,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, he may be a bit, you may be a little bit of a dilemma, right?
Mm-hmm.
In certain cases, but for me, yeah, I'm proud. I'm proud to be British. All I know is, when I was born here. Um,
Right.
Went through the system, education system, certain parts of the culture. I took on board. I'm not really the type of guy that takes on the lad or the pub culture, because I just think that's just unhealthy for me. Like I just don't. I just never engage in that stuff. Never really drink alcohol, but
Mm-hmm.
that's really what I would say is, yeah, you can be proud to be British, but yeah, it can be quite complicated when the parents come in, because then they will say certain stuff to you about what the British has done to their country, and
Mm-hmm.
it gets very, there can sometimes be conflict, right? Like for example, recently, had a nice guy from Jamaica. He's born in Jamaica, and he basically came over here. He was a painter, and
Right.
basically I was talking about my Brit, like the British in terms of how other countries are run, and then he was talking to me about how you also got to take into consideration what the British took from the other countries, right? So in a way, he
Mm-hmm.
kind of checked me on that, but then yet again, I'm just like, okay, cool, but last time I checked, I'm maybe of a descendant of those people, but I was born here also.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? It can be an identity. Sometimes it can be an identity issue.
Crises.
Yeah, but for me, I don't really find I have that. I don't really find I have that issue. Like when I spoke to a doctor recently, and um, a black doctor, and he said, "Yeah, you have an identity issue," and I'm like, I don't feel, I don't feel like there's something missing in regards to my identity. I could be wrong, but that's all I got to say. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
on a bit too much.
No, no, no. Good points, man. We're gonna double down in the second round because yeah, you're bringing up great points, which I'm guessing a lot of us deal with, internally, right? But salute to JM Talksman in the building. Next in the building was Diego Ife, aka Diego Harry, man. How you doing this evening, bro?
I'm good, bro. How you doing, man?
Yeah, man. Can't complain. It's a miserable day, man. Is it raining where you are?
Yeah, it has been. It has been. It's been cold pretty
Yeah,
much for
man.
most of the day. I've even got the heater on, which I wouldn't have expected at this time of year.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. It's crazy,
yeah.
man. This is another thing about England, man. It's just messed up weather.
I'm telling me,
But
man.
hey, yeah, hey, I can't complain, man. But hey, just as the initial thought that comes to your head, man, like why can't Black
Mm.
British people be proud of being British, in your opinion?
The British identity is imprecise. That's why.
Mm,
Yeah, I can elaborate on that.
mm,
Um, for me, like contextually speaking, the British identity is a imperial identity, right?
mm,
Most white people won't even identify as being English, let alone being British. They typically tend to be more regional identifying. So I'm a Bristolian, I'm a Mancunian, I'm a Yorkshireman. But do you understand? So they tend to be quite, and obviously with many black people, they tend to identify by their postcodes. Do you understand? Or like, I'm
right.
from South London. Let's just keep it what it is. You understand what I'm saying? So typically speaking, I tend to find when British comes up as a topic, when white people talk about being British, it tends to be in a more official capacity, sporting
Mm-hmm,
competition, aka like GB athletics team. If it's politicians, for example, businessmen and women, and so forth, that's when Britain tends to become, you know, for the sake of tourists. As a kid, I'd see like the emblems of like Britain, and you'd find is it the black taxi and like the red double decker buses, and that's literally
mm-hmm,
just one part of London. But there's a certain kind of image, a bit like how America has brand USA, right? Which differs
right.
entirely from the reality. It's a similar thing with Britain. So it tends to be more of an international identifier than anything else. Key part of the reason why we are attached to it is because of the increase in the non-black population in the UK. And since we are a reflection of the empire that once was, there's that label. I've said it on previous streams. I call, if we're going to be specific, I look at the idea of being a black Brit as a black British post-colonial subject, because it's like a continuum. You look at the Caribbean population, and someone, I think you read out on the Wikipedia page that the term originated in 1950, but I mean, not in an official context. You know, it was mostly people called African Caribbean. If you look at a lot of the media coverage going back to the 1950s, I've had to look at it as part of my work, and the word black is not mentioned. They'll say West African or African Caribbean or colored. You know, look at economists going back to the 1950s. It's only, I think, in 1980, was it Kings and Queens mentioned the Lord Scarman report coming out from the Brixton Riots in 1981. That was the first time, from what I saw it on text. You understand? And then in 1991 was when it officially appeared in the census, off the back of, you know, following much resistance from the Caribbean community to not use, you know, black or Asian as a racial identifier, because they believed rather than actually breaking down systemic inequalities, it actually reinforced them and actually gave more of an opportunity to discriminate, which it did. So when it comes down to these things, I'm a deep thinker. I like to look at things. I don't tend to go certain narratives which might be quite, you know, like liminal, or you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, I like to think about things before I would attach myself to any of these labels. And for me, essentially, it's a politicized identity. It's imprecise, and I don't think it's static. I think it's ever evolving. Like I said, of the Caribbean population, when they started coming over, that was before the attempted British West Indian Federation, which comprised most of the Caribbean English-speaking islands, right? I think that was an experiment that ran between 1954 and I think 1963, but in the end, it didn't work out. So as Caribbean people started coming in significant numbers from like 1947, 1948, they were British citizens. So like I said, why I call it post-colonial subject is because it's a continuum. British, Africa, Caribbean. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So that's how
is that a negative connotation?
No,
you know, as a subject, in your opinion,
it's a matter of fact. A lot of people, Africans, Afro-Caribbeans, if you go back to like our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, many of them were British colonial subjects. So they had British citizenship. It may have not been the exact same status as, like, say, the people that already were on British shores, but they had passported rights throughout the British Empire. So, you know, for example, my granddad was a British colonial subject. He came here to study during the colonial era. And then he went back. He wasn't the only one. There were several Caribbean and African people, not just from West Africa, Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, that basically came to the UK, and they could move around freely. The only reason why you now have more restrictions in terms of like movement is, you know, it's to do with, you know, like concerns over access to resources and stuff. So that's all it is, you know. That's ultimately, and also obviously it's political. There's a racial element to it, you know, not wanting to darken up the population. Almost not entirely different sentiments to Elizabeth I than the fear of the blackamoors, if you will. You know, put it like this. This is the other thing as well. I know that there's a reluctance for many black people to associate with being, in quote, British, because they find it synonymous with whiteness. But there's an irony to be recognized there, right? So it's like this. Your average black person ideally does not want to be discriminated or seen as less deserving, you know, vis-a-vis a white person. They should have access to the same opportunities, same public resources, and so on and so forth. But then, why would you want to not? Why would you find that you're less deserving of that status? Since it's a political label, why are you less deserving of that than a white person that has Polish roots, recent Polish roots, recent Italian roots, recent Lithuanian roots? Obviously, they came off the back of the EWF scheme, which was certain Europeans that were made English because coming out of the World War II, there was a large deficit. A lot of lives were lost. There was a 200,000 husband deficit. So they had to get in foreign white men and make them British or English, whatever you want to call it, anglicize their names and so on and so forth. So it begs the question, right? Why would someone in one breath want to complain about systemic racist experiences, but then at the same time, you want to eschew having the label? You understand? You look at all of the legislation that's been passed. I mean, again, kings and queens touched on it, from like, you have the 2010 Equality Act, which see black people have certain rights off the back of that, but that was foreshadowed by the 1965 Race Relations Act. So my thing is that if there hadn't been black, in quote, British people that had sought to get certain government concessions to make the lives of other black people on these shores easier, then the people here, I know that, look, things are not great, but the fact that there has been some gains, you've kind of got to recognize that there are some people that took on the so-called British identity in the name of securing better rights. So my thing is that sometimes you got to step outside of being used to this idea that, oh yeah, being white is this, that, and the other, because Britishness is imprecise. Do you understand? Like, if you really start to strip it back, and I'll leave it at this, you start to strip it back, who actually is British? If you want to go back maybe 8, 9, 10 generations, you'll find a lot of so-called English people are, if they're not Scandinavian or what have you, then they may be the Huguenots from France. They're the ones that were expelled, under the guise of effectively religious persecution. So who is British? It's imprecise. Anyway, I'll pass it on, man.
Hey, great points as always from Diego Ife, man. A lot to rebound off of. So great points. Salute to Diego in the building. And lastly, in the first round, we got Unstoppable Force, aka Unstoppable King. Salute to you, man. He cammed up, so he's legit. How are you doing this evening, bro?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I can't complain, man. Can't complain. Good to have you on the panel. So I just want to ask, man, how do you feel in general, just as an opener? Like, are you proud to be British as a black person, or can you be proud to be British as a black person, or is it complicated for you?
I think I think it is possible, but it depends on you as a person. I think to answer that question, you have to first understand, what you are as a black person, what kind of black person you are, what the word British means. For example, for me, like I've never really used the word British. I really only use the word English. So I've never really, as myself, as a black guy, considered myself English or British. Actually, I just consider myself as a guy who is maybe third generation British or third generation English. Like I use the words a lot. I don't really consider myself British. I consider myself third generation because I have grandparents and ancestors that have lived in this country, but also lived in other countries.
But you say you don't consider yourself to be British, even though you're third generation. Why is that?
I don't really like the word British. I think British is a word that doesn't really have a true meaning, if that makes sense, because British can mean someone that's born in England, Wales, Ireland, or Scotland. It can mean someone who is natively British, with British just means mixed, you know what I'm saying? I've always wanted to go deep into things, so I push things deeper. I'm like, okay, British means a whole bunch of different things, but really and truly, what are you actually? Are you British or English? And I think I've always considered myself, more English, but not native English or native British. Although I am mixed with native British, I would never call myself British. I mean, I call myself just a normal black guy, Afro-Caribbean, West African, or descent. I've called myself different things coming from a Caribbean descent. I changed, I think when I was younger, I used to call myself English. Then obviously, as the technology is advanced, and you find out, your ethnicity, I've changed and maybe consider myself just a normal black West African guy that was born in England. That's, I'm mainly Nigerian descent, with some Northwest European, even though I'm Caribbean.
Can I ask? that's a great point, because I think a lot of people are in that position, you know, where it's like complex. There's, you know, we have different identifiers. But can I ask, are you ashamed to call yourself Black British?
Am I ashamed? No, I'm actually not ashamed. I'm actually not ashamed because the term, and now that you said Black British, when I think of Black British, I don't really see myself as someone who's ashamed, because I feel like that can bring people together. Black British person can be someone who is Caribbean descent, or someone who is African, who is born in England. You know, that is something that can bring all Black people together in a way, if you call yourself Black British. So I call myself Black British. I think it sounds more masculine, you know, Black British. You know, it kind of, when you think of the two words, I'm Black British, it doesn't sound very feminine. It sounds quite masculine, if I'm being honest. But if you say Black American, I don't know, it doesn't really have much uniqueness to it. So to say you're Black British, that is something that is very good, and that's something that can bring a lot of communities together. So I definitely consider myself Black British, but I don't consider myself British, because that just basically means I'm white. And I don't really like, as a Black guy, like, and this is another thing, like, as a Black guy, I don't believe in seeking validation from another ethnicity. So for me as a Black
Okay. That's a key point that we're gonna have to raise, man. You're jumping the gun, man, but that's a key point. Validation. Okay, man. Great points from everyone in the first round, man. So we're gonna have to. It's more of a conversational part of the stream, okay? And I just want to ask this though, like, why, you know, again, with the whole issue of the, you know, the Just Purdy thing situation and white supremacists, this and that, and the FBA versus these other blacks, the tethers, the Africans, quote unquote. How is it, you know, it seems like FBA Black Americans have a stronger, they seem more proud of their origins as Americans, right? And if we know the history, or some people want to believe that they are indigenous, etc., okay, but the general history is that that ethnic group started from turmoil, right? It started from brutality, but yet they are, or at least on the surface, appear to be proud of those origins, right? So why is it that, you know, obviously we're different, but why is it that the Black British peoples, you know, Africans, Caribbeans who've come here, settled here, and who seem content, right? We all live in here. We seem to be, you know, using the services of the land. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. Why can't we have the same expression? You know, it might be kind of long-winded, but I'm talking about the differences between the FBA and, you know, us Black Brits. What are the key differences that make it unable for us to just say, hey, I'm Black and British?
I think the difference is, the reason why it's different is because obviously in England, when it comes to the Black people in UK, every Black person who has come to the UK has come here from either a ship or a plane. You know what I mean? So in the US,
How do you mean?
So for example, I don't really know of any history of Black British people who lived in the UK since the early hundreds, but people have come here from, you know, Africa and from the plane, to be honest. So
do you know? Were you not here when I read out the article about various Black British people that came, like in the 16th century? Some of them had businesses. Some of them were, you know, working for kings.
Oh no, I didn't hear about that. Well,
okay, but you basically feel that there's not like a long history of Black people in this country. Is that correct?
No, there isn't. No, that's probably why I think Americans are attached to the slavery, you know, and there's too much emotion behind it. Whereas UK, it's Black people have not really been attached to the slavery that much. We just come here and we just have assimilated, where Americans have assimilated, and they still facing issues.
Okay. Anyone else wants to jump on that? Like, why can FBA express themselves with such pride, you know, under the American banner, but yet it's kind of almost looked down on when British Black people want to express the same kind of sentiment.
I
Um,
oh yeah,
go on. Okay, all right. Okay, thanks, man. I think the experience is very different, man.
Mhm.
From from see with Americans, right? And again, I'm going by. Obviously, I'm not American. I know sometimes it'd be contentious to comment on the topic, but essentially,
Mhm.
with Black Americans, ideally, from the U.S. perspective, they would have settled all the freedmen in Liberia, and then everybody else that was still obviously under, the sort of under slavery. Once they had eventually been manumitted, they would have all shipped them off. But many of the older generations of Black Americans, even though they were proud of their African connection, recognized it was distant, and they believed that they'd put enough in terms of like what's the word I'm looking for? A contribution, building up the country. They believed that they had done just as much, if not more, than the white poorer settlers that were coming. So it was like, nah, even though there's, see at that point, Jim Crow was coming up and, Reconstruction era and so on and so forth. They believe that ultimately, above all else, they should get what's theirs, which is perfectly understandable. And I get that.
Mhm.
So it's almost like a situation where, and I don't want to get too theoretical when it comes to diasporic theory, but
Mhm.
the reality is, how, okay, so with people that are from African countries that are more recent arrivals in the UK, right? A lot of them still have some residual connection to like Africa. So they might not read newspapers and find out what's going on with politics and entertainment and God knows whatever else, but they'll sometimes go back, maybe once a year at best, maybe once every few years. You understand what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
that's the way they will keep that connection. Some people, especially not many of from our generation, may send money back. Do you get my point? So these are ways of maintaining somewhat of a diasporic consciousness. Obviously, in the case of, say, Black Americans, for example, their priority is obviously making sure that they get the best deal for themselves on US soil. So, for example, any kind of reparations or any kind of settlement that's mutually agreeable, that money ain't going to Africa. It's basically being used on American soil for the betterment of the Black Americans and their successive generations. Am I making sense?
Mhm.
So it's a different kind of thing. In terms of diasporic consciousness, it's kind of different. You get what I'm saying? And I think the
Absolutely.
commonality of, in quote, blackness is, again, foundationed on popular culture. You see
Mhm.
my point? If we hadn't consumed, especially in Britain and obviously the rest of the so-called black world, if we hadn't consumed as much popular culture as we have, there wouldn't be a lot of question marks on who's black, what's black, blah, 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 blah. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that Americans' experience, and I'm just giving like a quick overview, is very different to, say, for example, the British experience here. I call the British populace, if you will, the black people in the UK that have either grown up here, were born here and grew up here, and they say, for example, their parents or their grandparents, I call them a motley crew. You understand? Because
Mhm.
you don't have nationalist movements in this country. You never have had. Because the goal to go from the Windrush generation was to always assimilate. It was not to be a standalone presence, secure some land, build up like black neighborhoods, black businesses, and kind of just confine themselves. That was never the goal. I hope I'm making sense. So even when it
Mhm.
comes down to discussions on pro-blackness and what have you, it's a bit, for me, it's a bit of a hollow discussion because at best it's misunderstood. Do you understand? I'm just keeping it real. We've had to really
Mhm.
reflect on these things, man. And so that's where the difference lies. I think a lot of people, square pegs and round holes. Like a
Right.
lot of people are very dishonest about these vagaries of, in quote, blackness, because what really binds us outside of, in quote, racist experiences, and that in itself is somewhat relative because there's a lot of it. Some people had the sus laws, where police frisk them up. Others
Mhm.
don't know what that's like. You understand what I'm saying? Some people have really had it like, other people have had it vicariously. You see on point? Different people celebrate different independence events, for example, right? We have some people that will assert a sense of pride, like, yeah, I'm from this country, yeah, I'm from that country. They can't just be proud. They now have to shit on you and have a form of ethnic chauvinism. So if we're all meant to be one group, that is somewhat similar to, say, for example, the Black Americans, the evidence to support that is thin on the ground. I would argue it's non-existent. So ultimately, we find ourselves, this is like an incidental experience. It weren't planned, and there's no kind of coalescence where it's like, okay, bam, we find ourselves here. Should we be able to harness some types of resources or kind of find a way to move forward? Ultimately, so I'll keep it real. Outside of certain issues, we're not kind of automatically tied. Do you get my point? Obviously, there's the class issues, there's geographies, there's life kind of pursuits. Like, for example, KB Jones done the scream about whether diaspora should remain here or go. There's polarization on that issue. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So it never has been.
I mean, that's normal, right? That every individual will have their own, points of view and what they want to do, right? Their own goals, right? I mean, even within the same ethnic group, everyone will have different aspirations, right? Or different wants, needs.
They will, but see, this is the thing. If that's the case, then you have to look at it. You have to get more granular with it. You have to start looking at the countries. You understand? Like, are you from Ghana? Are you from Nigeria? Are you from Somalia? Okay, which groups, which clans? Do you see my point? Because otherwise, there's no connection. You see my point? Like, people, I'm keeping it real here. I know some people sometimes get a bit funny when I get so theoretical, but again, words have meanings. Ethnicity is a bit of like, it's almost like a placeholder, because I will tell you now, Black British, in the strictest sense of the word, is not an ethnicity. It's an identity label. It's a political label. It's not an ethnicity. Because an ethnicity denotes that you're part of a nation. Collectively speaking, you're part of a nation within a nation. And for that to happen, you have to have national consciousness. There has to be a shared idea that you all have a common shared destiny. So even if it's a thing where some people go to Africa or whatever and other people stay here, the bottom line is there has to be some kind of consciousness. So you'd have like at least a diasporic connection. Does that make sense? So even the people that stay here would deliberately go out their way to make sure that they have business that takes them to and fro. Transnationalism being an example of that. You see my point? But there is it's not aligned, and that's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. Anyway, I'll pass it on. I've spoken for quite a bit.
Great points. I think Jane wanted to come in, and then we'll let everyone else have their say. I want to highlight a few messages in the chat as well.
Okay. First off, what I will say is there's some strong badgery going on in this.
Uh-oh.
Right?
Badgery?
Yeah, a lot of badgery going on here, man. Like, we're not meant to be talking like this.
We're not allowed to have our point of view, right?
But anyway, right? What Diego Afe said is the spot on. If it wasn't for, let's say, consuming popular, let's say, media, right? There would probably, the question marks, there would be a lot, there wouldn't be so many question marks. Because it's like, for example, there is certain shows where, like, for example, Desmond's, where it had a bit of a mixture, right? You had a bit of the British culture, and you had a bit of the Caribbean culture and various other cultures. You had the Africans as well, so forth, and it all merged into this new subculture with, I don't know what I could really describe it as, right? But we managed. Yeah, go on.
Sounds like a melting pot or some sort of
like a melting pot, right? And it created a completely new culture within existing cultures, right? So when it comes to identity, it can be confusing based off the individual, right? It can be very, very confusing. And it's like, you may have various emotions. For example, do you feel guilty living here because of what your parents may have had to deal with due to what happened you know, with the interaction with the British, there was some positive and some negatives from it. Then you've also got to take into consideration there's the talk of the so-called struggle, right? Are you aligned with the struggle, or are you aligned with the betterment of British, let's say, progression?
It's funny because I think, is it Jason Black who's doing a stream, and he's like, I think he's a proper pro-black, right? I'm not sub to him. I just wandered into a stream and he's going off of black British people or persons, right? And it's like, okay, I understand their points of view in their opinions with the so-called tethers who come to this country and they align themselves with the white people and this and that. But it's like, again, we need to appreciate that we are all different. Yeah, some of us don't have the same history. We didn't come via as in servitude, right? So yeah, we're gonna have different points of view. It's as simple as that. So when people say the struggle, it's like everyone has a distinct and different struggle. But when you're trying to force people to accept this racism narrative, the ultimate white supremacy holding us down, it's like everyone's gonna respond to that in a different way, right? Exactly. I find it weird that people expect you to respond to things in exactly the same way because that's just how they feel. That's just disrespectful in my opinion.
I agree, and this is why, like, what I see, not all, but a lot in the black community is a hive-minded, monolithic way of thinking, and this is something that I've experienced in my life quite a lot. Also, you got to take into consideration that I have Asperger's syndrome, so I think out of the box also, right? And then you got the racial dynamic that comes into it, and then you got the British culture dynamic that comes into it as well. Right. For example, I have certain talking points or unique talking points where I'm just like, okay, well, if this country is so institutionally racist, right? I don't know if it is or it isn't. And to be honest, I'm not going to really waste my time on finding out if it is or isn't. I'll leave that to other people to find that. Because in the end, you only got one life and you can't just keep thinking about what is or isn't holding you down, right? Reality is you're just going to have to work towards it. But I have a talking point where some people say, "Oh, it's this people say this country's institutionally racist," and I'm like, okay, we only make 4% of the population. There's only about how many blacks can get into these certain institutions because there's only 4% of us, right? So there's probably institutions out there that are predominantly white where they can't even have the opportunity to be racist to black people in the first place, right? That's another thing that I look at as well. Then another thing as well is like, they talk in the FA regarding there's not enough black coaches in grassroots football. Well, yeah, but the thing is there isn't enough blacks to go around to get into these institutions in the first place. It's like maybe it's how the media is perceiving it, that maybe what the media is showing on television isn't an accurate representation of what Britain is, right? Where it gives this illusion that there's more blacks than there actually is, right?
Okay.
So that's just something I think about too, but I'm done.
Okay, great point. I want to quickly call out Captain Tulsa, man. I appreciate the $4.99 super chat, man. Let me try this. Again, I'm going to upgrade my bootleg sound effects, man. But salute to Captain Tolson with another super chat, man. I really appreciate the support. He's been sponsoring the show today, man. He says, tell an Anglo that being British means nothing. They know who they are, just as we should. And, that's the last parts are key because just as we should know who we are. So, this is one of those important questions that we need to ask the panel as well, because yeah, a native British person who has, generations, who has a history of being in this country is going to have a different sense of being, belonging, and identity, right? But, I guess this is a question to everyone, like, who are we? For example, my parents were born in Nigeria. I am born in the UK. Are you saying that I should identify as a Nigerian. You know, if that is your belief in the chat, press a 1. If you think that, you know, with my parents being born in Nigeria, I should identify as a Nigerian and not really have anything to do with being British. If that's what you believe, press 1 in the chat just to get an understanding and a feel for what you're thinking. Or press a 2 if you think being born and raised here has had an effect to the point where my identity has been affected, where I am not just a Nigerian, I'm something else. Press a 2 if there's a, you know, if there's a mixed dynamic going on. Because I think that is a key point. You know, because I will tell you, man, the Nigerians, like Nigerians from Nigeria, and I'm not saying this to kind of, you know, to kind of bolster this whole British identity. And I'm not even saying it like I have all the answers, because I really don't. I know it's a complex situation, but the reality is, and this is something I've always brought up, is that they do not take to me, the Nigerians born in Africa don't take to me as a Nigerian, right? There'll be snide remarks, oh, you English boy, you know, and further down the line, when you deep it, there's undertones of hate as well. It's like, oh, you're privileged, you know. So unfortunately, yeah, I can, you know, put on the Agbada and feel all sorts of pride. Check out my ancestry video. I'm pretty proud of my heritage, right? My genetic heritage. But the reality is, for how I speak and my mentality, if I move around Nigerian people in Nigeria, they're gonna notice that I'm different. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you know, it's easy to say we should know who we are, but you know, I think this is what has caused a lot of the rift and talking points over the last few weeks, because it's like, yeah, we are all different. We all have a different path, lineage, right, journey, right. But I appreciate Captain Tosin. Anyone else? What does anyone else think on that?
Yeah, I want to say that, you know, first of all, being black, it's a social construct, all right? That's something it was made by, you know, classification and things like that. So, you know, when Tanky Bot says I'm African, I'm not British, he needs to shut up, you know, like, because he doesn't understand anything.
Okay, easy, bro. Let's not offend the chat, brother. Let's not offend the chat, bro.
Yeah, so like what I was gonna say is that, like, you know, people really need to start understanding what the dynamic is between, you know, the construct of what it is. Everyone thinks that, you know, just claiming this and that is what it is. But, you know, I'm starting to see that, like, you know, more people are starting to gravitate towards, you know, being British, and a lot of Black Americans, they get angry anytime they, you know, see someone's, you know, speaking about like issues pertaining to this topic. Like they know that, you know, the British pound is more valuable than the American dollar. So to them, it's like an FU when they see that the British people are doing better and, you know, are actually having a place and not the ghettos.
Okay, so are you kind of saying that there is a hate involved?
No, I'm not saying there's a hate, but, like, you know, there's just, you know, a culture clash, you know, like between two groups, you know, like American blacks versus British blacks, you know, like people just see it like as, you know, a clash, you know, and, you know, a lot of American blacks, yeah, they choose to stay in their place because they know that, you know, living in America is actually much more better, you know, and things like that. And, you know, to what this guy has to say, like, you know, what's his name? Jesse had to say, you know, he made a good point that, you know, being British is what is important because, like, you know, that's where you're born, that's where the citizenship comes. You can't just make things up and just say, oh, I'm African American, but then, you know, all of a sudden your ancestors are, like, you know, from, you know, Ghana, but, you know, you claim to be something that you're not, or a descendant of. So like this is one thing. It's like it creates a whole like divisiveness and things of that nature. But
Okay.
going on more onto what I'm trying to put the picture is that yeah, like things are much more like valuable in UK and things, so like you have to do that. But like in terms of blackness, like if you go to Morocco, you're gonna see that there's actually black people there. If you go to the southern part of Morocco and Algeria and things, like the one thing I noticed is that like one of my friends went there. He told me culture there is super like conservative and super this, super that, and
Let me just say something. You guys in the chat, man, you need to be easy on Shaw, man. Let's encourage our brothers to speak and say their point, okay?
Yeah. So
but yeah, Shaw, great points. Or did you want to round it up?
Yeah, I want to say that, like, to what anyone has to say is that, like, don't try to, like, be something that you're not, especially when it pertains to, like, race relations and stuff, because that's what it, like, things seem to be doing, and, I would, like, to be honest, I would rather, like, move to the UK. That's what I'm, like,
sorry, Shaw. No, sorry, Shaw. It's not you. It's just these guys in the chat, man. I need to lock off the chat because these guys.
Yeah, these guys are full like haters and like they just want to say things like, what do you mean I'm not black, man? Look at my face. Like, you can't even see me.
Hey, we hear you, Shaw. Shaw. Cool off for a sec. We hear you, man. Don't let them trigger you, man. They're cracking me up. It's my fault. So apologies, Shaw. I know they get under your skin, but salute to Shaw in the building, man. Let's let everyone have their chance and let them speak. But anyone want to jump on the last part in relation to Captain Tolson's super chat?
Okay.
Should you just know who you are, right? Should you identify with your parents' country more so than your, where you've been born and raised, you grew up, you got schooled in, you got skilled in,
Let Justice speak.
Was that KB?
Sorry, go on.
I did talk, but it wasn't just me though.
Okay, anyone who comes to the line now can jump in.
I don't think you should identify with the country your parents are from, because that makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense because if you were born in this country, you were born in this country, you have this passport, you breathe this oxygen, you're going to have this mentality, this country's mentality, this country's personality. The personality of your ethnicity would be this country's version. Do you understand? So let's say you're Nigerian and you're a British Nigerian, you're going to act like a British Nigerian. You're not going to act like a Nigerian. Mm-hmm. And secondly, you're not from where your parents are from. Like if someone is Nigerian and their parents are from Nigeria, genetically Nigerian, they're born Nigerian, yeah, you're ethnically Nigerian, but you're not from Nigeria. That's impossible. How can you be from there if you're born here? You see what I'm trying to say? If you're from there, that means you're from there. It means you're born there. That's what it means. But there's a problem where people say, no, I'm not from here, I'm from there. But no, you're not from there, because at the end of the day, your passport don't lie. Nobody cares about where you're from. At the end of the day, your passport holds most of the weight, and your birth certificate even. So at the end of the day, your nationality trumps everything. You know what I mean? And that's just
Hey, good points, man.
I think, honestly, where people are saying that if your parents are Nigerian, you should identify as Nigerian. Like you said, Falcon, if we go to Nigeria, they're going to be quick to show us that we're not one of them. Like, fair enough, we may all be black or whatever, but we're not the same. The same thing is recently, Americans let us know that we're not like them either, right? We're not like the black people. So on all these different sides, although we may all be black as a identity, we're not the same. We do have different cultural influences. So you can't say that Britain doesn't influence us, because the Nigerians see that it's influenced us, the Americans see that it's influenced us. And if we're being honest with ourselves, being here, being born here, or at least growing up here, it influences us as who we are. So for me, being Nigerian or Italian is going to be secondary to being British. British is like ultimately going to be my identity. It's what shaped us the most. So for people saying that we shouldn't identify as British, it's going to be cutting off a big part of who we are and what influences the way that we think, because it's our experiences. Our experiences aren't Nigerian, they're British.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. Like, even the idea of being Nigerian is imprecise itself. You understand? People speak, you know, sometimes people will say, oh yeah, that thing, but you now start asking them what they truly mean. You're not going to have uniform answers. So how do you anchor yourself onto an identity which is imprecise? So one's telling you to exchange one form of identity imprecision for another. And then on top of that, we can't deny, I know it's a politicized, heavily politicized, but the reality is assimilation's a thing. And so in many ways, you know, to use your example, Falcon, about not, you know, obviously the Nigerians having that certain level of contempt, which many of us can actually relate to. I look at it as recognizing that assimilation has taken place. If they themselves are westernized, despite, you know, maybe trying to, you know, claim otherwise, then what more us? Like, the reality is assimilation is real. Even if you got with a woman that was Yoruba, for example, but she was born and raised here, your children's experience is going to be even more so, you know, very much kind of influenced by their surroundings. They're going to identify more so with being on this soil than you would. Do you get my point? So people can deny it all they want to, but at the end of the day, I hope I'm making sense here. If you're supposed to now start virtue signaling on being a Nigerian, what does that look like? Do you have to change your cadence? Do you now have to start forcing pigeon? Do you practice it until it now sounds as authentic and indistinct to anybody else?
I think a lot of people actually do that.
Well, but it's a fool's errand at the end of the day, because it takes a long time, and in that time, you got several Nigerians that don't even have the command of it. You understand what I'm saying? And even at that, for what it's worth, the pigeon itself is not even indigenous to Nigeria. And it's something that was New World derived and ended up in Nigeria through trade during the steamship evolution in the 19th century. That's when it started to take root. And of course, the evangelism that was taking place in that kind of Niger Delta area, that was how it really started. Anyway, I don't want to get too bogged down on that. What I'm trying to say is that you now start stripping back. What does it mean exactly? Is it Afrobeat? Because Afrobeat in itself is a fusion of different genres and influences. How do you live out your Nigerianness? No one seems to be able to answer that question. There's no real consensus about it. You understand? Not anything that really has substance. And that's part of the reason why many Nigerians in Nigeria are malleable, very malleable to Western influences, particularly American popular culture, because there's a void, there's a gap. So how is the blind going to lead the blind? Not many people have considered that. So that's the reason why, like I said, it's futile, you know, kind of, okay, yeah, I'm going to identify with this as virtue signaling. And the reality is people have to determine what works for them and damn what anybody else thinks. Because I think that there's a lot of people not being honest with how they truly feel, but they're trying to make sure that they don't offend the sensibilities of others, and they can get a pat on the back for saying do you understand what I'm trying to say? They feel like they have to give an answer that conforms with, you know, what is, you know, like, yeah, I'm down, rather than just saying it as it is.
You know, I find it funny, like, you know, people, so-called black British people will, you know, try to manifest this sense of pride. Like, for example, if some music artist goes to America, it will be like, yeah, it's black British. It's like we want to feel this type of pride, and we try to express it, But then it's a weird situation, man. It's like it's so flexible. On one end, people want to, I'm Black British, but then on another end, people want to kind of, dance around this idea of being, I don't know, from an island or from Africa or something like that. It's just really unstable and just flip floppy, man. So I think this is I guess the core aim of these type of streams is for us to actually talk about what might be being processed in our mind, because it's absolutely needed, But I think KB wanted to come in the first instance, so let's let brother KB Jones speak, man.
Yo, what's up, Falcon? What's up, everybody?
Hey, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, fam. What are you saying, bro?
Good, man. I can't complain, man. Miserable day, but hey, I'm here with you guys, so perked up a little bit.
Come on, bro. Come on. Really good stream. Really good stream. Hearing everyone's sort of viewpoint. I think a lot of people know that I'm someone who sort of debates about this kind of subject a lot. The whole concept of Black British. For me personally, I would say first of all, to answer the initial question, I would say I'm proud to be Black British for quite a few reasons that people have said. My family being Ghanaian, regardless, I grew up here. I was born and raised here. My friends were here. My life experiences were here. And also, what I think is interesting when it comes to this whole concept of Black British people and, are we British? Are we not? Are we our families, countries, nationalities, ethnicities, whatever. I find in a lot of cases compared to other ethnic people from Britain, right, or that have immigrated to Britain, had children in Britain. So let's say Asian people, let's say even white other. So let's say Eastern Europeans or Southern Europeans, right? You tend to find even if they've been born here or their children have been born here or they're strongly identified with Britain, in a lot of cases I found anyway, what's really easy for a Polish person being born in Britain to still say they're Polish is they will go twice a year. They will learn Polish from when they're 2 years old, as well as English. In terms of that sort of thing, an Italian, whatever, a Greek, I know these sort of people. I'm not saying in every case, but I think where some of this sort of confusion or the struggle to identify is that yes, we're British and we're influenced by Britain, but our African or Caribbean experiences, at least in my case, were like special events. It's like, oh, we're going to Auntie so-and-so's house, or we're going to so-and-so's party. It was very few and far between times where I would have the Ghanaian experience, if that makes sense. Because aside of that party happening or that wedding or, unfortunately, maybe even that funeral, as soon as I leave all these people, my family, all these Ghanaians and this uncle and I haven't seen you since you were small and all this sort of stuff, my normal day-to-day stuff is back in London. It's almost like being in a job. It's almost like, like when I go to these things, it's like being on the weekend and then just being British is my 9 to 5. But that's not to say I don't like being British. Do you know what I think as well with people our age, like millennials and down? Also, I think there's a sense of like an overspill from the older generations. And what I mean is because of what they went through, so I don't blame them. And I do even try to highlight on my channel and stuff like that, there's a strong identifier or a sort of sense of if you identify as British or English, then that equals white. But in terms of, I'll say our generations, in the very least, particularly millennials, we was one of the first groups of, let's say, children that were encouraged to integrate with each other type thing, from school and upwards. So it's not to say we don't experience systematic racism and little bit, we have our own, it's like we have our own versions of these things, but that doesn't mean that, Britain is the same as 1970, for example.
That's why I have to keep it real. I think I said it in your stream that it's very hard for me to take to the opinions of race from someone that's like a boomer or someone from an older generation, because they have a very different viewpoint, right? They're probably scarred with certain racial issues that it might not apply to my generation, to our generation. So it's like almost like a relic. It's almost hard to accept in some cases. You know what I mean? I think that generational thing is very important.
And then obviously at the same time, you know, again, we go for our own things in our own ways. So, you know, when, you know, the ethnic English, you know, British, you know, let's say white people, for example, want to remind us that we're not one of them. I think people sometimes feel like we don't understand that. We do. But like people have said as well, is, you know, and I've seen it in the chat as well, we're in this in between rock and a hard place. We're stuck in the middle because when we try and go back home, quote unquote, we're seen as, you know, white people, British, and a few people have said it, you know, and it happens to be different countries and everyone's saying the same thing. Everyone's like, you're white, you're English. I can imagine someone like, say, Jessica, who's actually mixed race, they're definitely going to call you white. Do you know what I mean? And so we're stuck in between that because if anything, yes, I'm Ghanaian, definitely, and culturally, and my name says so, and I'm attached to it, and I gravitate towards it. But if it's going to be, say, a scale of both of what I know, what I've experienced, and I don't want to say the accepted, I don't want to say that word. So basically, if I'm in Ghana, I'm just another black man, but I'm a British black person. So that's what makes me different. In over here, I'm another British person, but I'm black. So that's what makes me different. So because take away my skin color, I'm just another Londoner. Do you know what I mean? I don't, without that sort of tag attachment. So, you know, and again, it also depends how you feel. But I certainly feel like I'm black British. I certainly feel like, especially of my millennial age, that certain cultures have been derived by us. Certain movements, you know, for better or worse, you know, culturally in Britain, and even in terms of the way some, you know, non black people, or so say white people, even address or speak now, their cadence and everything, again, for better or worse, it's derived from our generation. There's certain music that will live on forever that spawned from us. We have certain great people that were our age. These people are between 20, I think it's like 25 and 42. That's us. We did that. So I don't feel like anyone should be able to take that away from me, you know, or us.
Great point, bro. Great point. I wanna before I forget, I wanna really also kind of look into this topic, look into this comment, right? Mood Best B says, what name is that, man? Mood Best B? God damn. He or she said, how could I be proud of a label that subjugated my people and sold them in the markets? Okay, so this is, I guess, what I'm talking about when it comes to the whole shaming angle, right? So I want to ask the panel as well, is this, you know, do you kind of align with this way of thinking that because of all the historical subjugation, that therefore you can't really relate, you know, with the country and being a citizen, for example? You know, my thing to that is that you're here. Why are you still here? When people have these kind of, you know, this kind of negative viewpoint of the country, I just wonder if you're of professional age, right? You're a working person. Are you, you know, why are you still here with that type of angst or that animosity towards the environment?
Can I interject, please?
For sure.
Right. This is an issue. I'll say now. Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, which I respect. Right, in regards of the negative aspect of the country. Right. In the end of the day, the past is the past. There's nothing you can really do about it. Right. That's just an undeniable fact. Yeah, there may be certain corrections you could do. The history, for example, you know, there's talks of reparations and various things of that nature, right? The thing is who is your people? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Is it the British people? Is it both black and British people? Is it Africans? Is it Caribbean people who are not of this land? Right? That's what you got to really think. Because when I hear my people, because there's times where, for example, I go into a household, right? Let's say I'm the killmonger, right? Without the killing, right? Let's just say I'm the infiltrator, even though I'm not infiltrating, right? There's times where I'll come into a household, right? And they will talk about my people. And then all of a sudden they will start glancing over to me and looking at me, thinking, is this person one of us? Right? And then when I think one of us, what do you mean one of us? Right? Who is my people? Who is your people? Right? My people, in my opinion, is the British people, my parents, family, and basically, and when I mean British, I just mean all British people in general. So it can include Black British, right? Those are my people, right? Now, people may look at it in a different way and say, oh, hey, look, it's only Black people who are my people. It can be quite confusing, right? But here's my other issue, right? This was something that happened during the pandemic, right? Where there was people going to the cenotaph trying to burn the British flag, but yet they're British citizens of the country, right? Desecrating Churchill's memorial, right? In a way, I felt some sort of way about it, in my opinion, right? That kind of really irritated me. Now,
why did it irritate you?
the reason why it irritated me is because certain people don't want to appreciate the country. Yeah, there's history, but in the end of the day, what is it do you want? Do you want war? Do you want peace? It's a question you need to really ask yourself, right? I want peace. I want to live in this country with whoever it is, of any ethnic group, any culture, whatever, who is willing to be good or who are willing to be good, right? And just accept that, yeah, they may have a different culture and they all exist in the land and have different experiences on this land or in this country, right? Now, obviously, you're going to have cultural differences, right? A Black person is going to have a different cultural let's say difference to, let's say, an Asian British person, because of some of the cultures and the values that's been instilled from them, from their families or whoever, right? So if I generally thought, oh, hey, this country is really, really bad, this is just me, right? I'm hopping on the plane somewhere else, right? Point blank period. Right? So
what is this duplicity then, man? What is this? Is it like people just taking the piss? Like,
Do you know what?
I think, I can understand why a native person would be annoyed by that mentality. It's like, you have the opportunity to live a life that there's not many other Black people in this world that have the amount of opportunities that we Westerners have, right? But and still, it's like you just want to complain about things that you either have no control of because they're in the past.
Exactly.
It's just mysterious.
I think two things can be true at the same time, right? Because one, I didn't ask to be born here. I was born here. So this is where I've grown up. This is where I most, quote unquote, fit in. But at the same time, like when Jesse is saying that he felt bad when they were knocking down statues, I didn't feel bad. I didn't, because one thing about that we have to admit in the UK is that the UK almost likes to kind of absolve itself of its history. And we like to pin a lot of things on America, right? When it comes to slavery and just that whole aspect. But Britain was heavily involved in it too. All of those statues that they were knocking down when the whole BLM thing was going on. Do you know the history of those people whose statues they were knocking down? Why am I going to feel bad for for that statue being knocked down when really and truly, if that person had their way back in the day, I would have been a slave. So now I'm meant to sit there and feel bad at their statue being knocked down. I couldn't care less.
That's a great point. Before 1 second, JM, you can I just want to quickly before I forget. Let me just read out Michael Meachop, the 4 super sticker man, always coming through. American guy coming through in the Black British panel. I appreciate the 99-cent super sticker, bro. Good to have you in the building. Salute to you. That's Michael Meachop, the 4th. And yeah, just before JM interjects, I think just because accurate with regards to with that kind of with that attitude, because it's like, especially Churchill. Churchill was, I've read some of his memoirs and stuff. He was a known racist. He was basically a real white supremacist, right? Even though he heroically led Britain. What was that battle? The battle of the Battle of Britain, right, against the Germany over the English Channel. We'll fight in the land.
The Battle of Somme.
I think it's the Battle of Britain, isn't it? The battle over the English Channel with the Luftwaffe versus the British Air Force. No, but that was a key battle where I could be wrong, but
I think
and this is. Sorry, what was that?
I think you're right.
Right, and this is, to your point, Jessica, this is the duplicity, because it's like, unfortunately, and this is something that I'm not ashamed to say, and no one else should be, is that there is a grim history involving Black people, right? So this is where I can understand there is a detachment, because like I read out in the article, man, if you're coming here, you're paying your dues, you're doing your work, you're selling your wares, and then the Queen and the people are suggesting, you need to be sent out, right? So there is there is two sides, but let's let JM respond to that though.
All right. So regarding Churchill, he has done, he has said racist stuff, right? He also has, done some atrocities. I'm aware of Colson. The Colson statue got knocked down in Bristol.
Was that a slave owner or trader?
Right. Yeah. BLM people knocked that down. Fair enough. Cool. But when you start burning the British flag, right, and this is a fact, like people did try to burn the British flag and BLM, so on and so forth, right? What is it that you stand for then? Right? Because it's like, okay, hey, look, you're proud to be British, but there's British culture. The flag is a sign of that culture that you were born in, right? What is it? What are you? What do you stand for? Right? So yeah, obviously there's the bad, but there's also the good, right? So I look at a bit of both, right? I'm not denying that, hey, look, there's atrocities that has happened. Yes, there has been certain issues that has happened in the Caribbean island, African islands that were wrong, right? But again, we're living in this time. There's nothing we can really do about it, right? There is no power to do anything about it, right? I'm not saying forget your history, forget your roots and where you come from, but just remember where you are right now, right? Which is Great Britain and England, right? Everyone has their different experiences, right? Everyone all coexist in this land, right? Culturally, may have certain individual experiences and live experiences that they've had that has shaped their views, right? And I'm not trying to impose my thinking on other people, right? But you got to have a bit of bad. This is the thing with, like, no one's really innocent in this, in this, right? Everyone has done, like, even individuals, people have done bad, some have done good, right? And I can't say there's a balance to it. I can't really say that or make that observation, but what is it like? What is it that you want? What is it that you want? Fair? What is it that you stand for? What is it here that you live for? Obviously, you live for yourself.
There's nothing that I want from the UK per se, but I'm not going to fool myself as to its history. Like, even with I was on Jason Black's show and he got mad at me because I said that I'd never faced racism before. And legit, no one here has ever said anything racist to me. Ever. I've never been called a racist name. So I'm not gonna act like the UK is this horrible country, but At the end of the day, despite the fact that no one has said anything racist to me, I know if it really came down to it, do white British people, for the most part, see me as exactly the same as them? No. Now, they've never said anything to me or done anything nasty to me, but you know that you're not exactly the same. There still is
Yeah, I
that
agree with that.
air there, you know? So
Yeah.
I'm not going to, it's just, again, like the being sad at statues coming down. No, I don't care. And I'm not going to force myself to do something like that. Because
Okay,
again,
great
you know,
point.
they don't align. Not really.
Hmm. Let me bring other people into the conversation as well. But let me shout out Blaze, brother Blaze, from America, overseas, man, with the $10, man. He says showing support, Oga at Falcon.
Oga.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. Blaze, yeah, Oga. You know, for those that don't know, Oga basically means like boss or you know, just a term of endearment in Yoruba. So I really appreciate that, man. Always coming through, showing support. Man, appreciate Blaze and everyone else showing love in the super chats. Everyone else liking the stream. You know, this is you know, I didn't feel like doing the stream, to be honest, because I'm just in a malaise to some degree. But it's always important to have these checkpoints. You know what I mean? And I guess it might be interesting for other Black people who might be in a similar situation. So salute to Blaze in the building, man. Salute. Anyone else wants to jump into that discussion with, like, you know, feeling embarrassed because of the historical events that have been, you know, negative towards Black people?
Yeah, I want
Um,
to chime in. Let me just say this.
One second, Shaw. I think KB came in just before you. 1 second, Shaw. We'll come to you after, okay?
all right. Yeah, I won't be long. It's, do you know what? We know these things happened, and obviously they were horrible. And should we be embarrassed by them? I don't think necessarily, because like, do you know what really jars me, right, is this need to want to carry this burden on. Like, when are we gonna stop this carrying this burden on? Like, things are still happening. Like, are we gonna worry about what happened in the past and still have to deal with now as well? Like, I understand, but I'm getting a bit sick of this. Like, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened. We know, we know. So what are we gonna do about it? Or are we just gonna moan all the time? Like, you know what I mean? Because all I hear is just moaning, like, things used to happen. Like, what do you want us to do about it? And this is why I brought up the age thing too, because many of us were not born when a lot of these things happened. We just weren't. Like, so even some of our parents weren't even born. You know, my mum was barely born in the 60s. She didn't even see some stuff by the time it happened. So you want then the child of the immigrant to solve the problem 6 generations ago. How? Why? Well, it's yes, it's my bloodline, and yes, to do so, but not so. What, 2 generations before me didn't do anything, and then now I have to fix it. Like, why? And then on top of it as well, I can't be British, I can't be African. I have to figure out my own identity. If I attach one, I'm too much of one. If I attach one, I'm too much of the other. So then what? So then figure that one out as well. You know, on top of the fact of it got mentioned that we were born here. We didn't choose to be. People jumped on planes, or in some cases maybe took other methods, came here and had us by their decision. I haven't met one African that told me a story that their parents got smuggled here. Not one. They all came by choice. They all came by choice. And also as well, I think it was brought up earlier. Okay, yes, atrocities to do with the West, the UK, the States. Why did people come here then? Why did you have me here then? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why would you, if why would you go to enemy territory and have your child? That's crazy. Yeah. To me, that's crazy. I've never understood that mentality. What, because of economic opportunities? But it's enemy territory according to you guys. You know, so, and then me being born here, not out of choice, I go home and then you treat me as like other. Like, nah, man. Anyway, go on, bro.
Strong point. Strong
Yeah.
point.
So yeah, what I wanted to say is that he's right. KB is absolutely correct. Like what's with all the hate and animosity towards hating yourself? Not everyone had a choice. People had to emigrate to places just to find better opportunities. Falcon is second generation British Nigerian because his parents were born in Nigeria and they migrated to UK, so therefore he's a second generation Nigerian, but he's also a Black British nationality. But like what am I trying to get out of this? It's that like people are so like eager nowadays. They'll just say things out of context to do things like, for example, if you heard of Andrew Tate is like he's part Black. His father's Black, but to me he looks Hispanic, and he's a British dude because his father Emery abandoned him, so therefore his mother is a British woman, and he's lived there his whole life, and he tried to help men deal with their struggles, and I actually think Andrew Tate is a great person. I don't think he's horrible as the media claims that he is. I think he was trying to raise mental awareness amongst those that are suffering in silence, and that's what I'll give him credit where it's due. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Good point. We got a few new people. Do you want to chime in if you can? Where was Yashu? I think he jumped off. But Smooth, salute to you. Do you have any points you want to raise with what we've brought up so far?
Yeah, can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to say that at the end of the day, man, I believe that it's a natural thing to always want to, separate yourself and, form your new little tribe and all that. It's that intense tribalism that I think lays dormant within human beings as a whole. And as far as Black British people go, I think most of you already said it, assimilation, you acknowledge the culture of your parents, but then as well you assimilate into a new one. So I strongly believe that the acceptance when it comes to when you go back to Nigeria, for example, in your case, you're never really going to get that because from the jump you're different anyway. You understand me? So it's good enough that you acknowledge it, but at the end of the day, y'all niggas ain't the same, and you will never see yourselves as the same. As a matter of fact, you could say that you, like Black British folks, are a whole new tribe in itself. But the difference is that you just don't have a country or a name or a language, but you've already created your own Black British culture. You see it in the universities, that I was glad to attend and shit. You see it in the language, you know what I'm saying? So y'all got your own thing going. You understand me? So difference is that
yeah. Why can't we advance that? It's true, because it's like we've created something. We've created different art forms and art styles, language, vernacular. Why can't we? Is it wrong to want to advance that and progress that?
Absolutely not. I think the best, if you are looking for any kind of acceptance, which is not necessary, but if you want to go to Nigeria and be of value to them, you just bring something over there, man. Bring the bag, man. And yeah, that can be taken in any way. You know what I'm saying? Like, if as a whole British people say, okay, we're going to go over there and we're going to build infrastructure. Yeah, it's definitely possible. You know what I'm saying? You got to bring guns to them. You know what I'm saying? So that whole thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say something on that. I think if we're going to use popular culture as the marker of this Black British identity, the thing is, it's not static. And so the different art forms and events and what have you that have arisen are just going to become relics of the past eventually, if that makes sense. Stuff, for example, like garage music, you know, is it funky soul, funky house, all that kind of stuff, right? It happened, it arose in certain circumstances. And so now we listen to it with nostalgia. We listen to it as, you know, the same way that some of our parents might listen to music from the 70s and stuff like that. It's becoming more like that now. So as the racial demographics change in this country, because Black people are no longer at replacement rate, whether you're looking at the Caribbean or the African side, that's going to change the popular culture. So then, and this is why I say that the identity itself is imprecise. I hope I'm making sense, because, you know, as KB Jones said, like, and I call it London Creole English, but there's a certain kind of vernacular and inflections that not just Black people, but other people are starting to speak with. In the British context, Blackness, in quotation marks, inverted quotation marks, is open source. You understand? Since it's based on popular culture, it's open source. What do I mean by that? A lot of Black people, and it might be based on novelty, it might be based on merit. They prefer Adele. They prefer Ed Sheeran. Or Ed Sheeran, how you pronounce his name. They prefer, is it C something guy like that, Amy Winehouse, and the list goes on. They prefer to see white people performing what maybe even Eminem, even though I know Eminem is not British, but he has a British fan base, right? They love seeing non-Black people performing what we know to be Black music genres. So Blackness has become open source, so much so that you have liberal-minded Indian or Asian people who feel comfortable calling a Black person a raccoon or a coconut because certain Black people have put a battery in their back. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is why, like I said, as much as these are cultural markers, these are the kind of things that people, when it comes to popular culture, you'll tell your children or your grandchildren about. But it's not something that's static or set in stone. Even for white people.
What, in your opinion, is an example of something that's set in stone, that's concrete enough to form, you know, some sort of identity around, in your opinion?
Are you talking about in a broader British context or specifically in the Black space?
Specifically to advance in that Black British identity. What will be something that's concrete enough to enable that, in your opinion?
The truth is, the only thing I can think of, and I'm clutching at straws here, yeah? The Notting Hill Carnival was the closest thing, you know, like that there. You know, if you're a British Caribbean person, four generations in, you can still point to that as something that's a carryover from 6-7 decades ago. You understand?
Culture, that's music and dance.
But the carnival as we know it has not remained static. That's why I'm scratching my head and thinking, what exactly? Because carnival started out as a political demonstration from 1958 to 1976 or whatever it was. Then it now started becoming more of like a street party. The carnival is more of a Trinidadian thing. It comes from Trinidad, from it's like the 1820s or wherever, right? Claudia Jones, I think it was, that was the creator of it. She was Trinidadian, so she took her culture and used that as a foundation. But by the 70s, when it became a street party, most of the people that attended were Jamaican, most of the Black people, even though Jamaica ain't got a carnival culture like that. Am I making sense? And then there was friction between people from the Windward Islands and Jamaica, such that it's even been written about in academic papers. And then in more recent times, you have an Afrobeat corner. And there was one girl on Twitter that said how now we're one British Black collective, maybe it doesn't need to be so focused on soca. Maybe it can just be a free-for-all. And all these Caribbean people came forward and said, we ain't got no problem with Africans, but this is a specific cultural institution. But yet you still have an Afrobeats corner. It's become far more commercialized. It's not just, I mean, black people don't, you have like the jabs celebration that starts where it's mostly black people, in fairness. Yeah, it's early doors. But outside of that, carnival's commercialized. That is the only thing I can think of that is set in stone. Black History Month, for example, that's they want to turn that into multicultural month. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So there's very little that's actually static. You can have theatre productions. I think if you have a theatre company which is able to actually create stories and productions that retells the black experience, I'd say really from the Windrush, because if I'm being honest with you, much of the racial politics that we either face directly or is indivisible from our existence comes from that post World War II era. All this other stuff about the black poor that got deported to Sierra Leone, the black Comores, the blacks of Londinium, that means honestly there's no continuum. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So if the theatre company or theatre productions, it's art is going to be the way to retell your story. You see my point? If you look
But
at
why is there no continuum? Why was there no continuum? Is it a failing in the black people that came here, or was it because the native people birthed us out?
I wouldn't say so. You see, this is the thing, right? The black people that ended up here, I mean, like your largest black population before the Windrush was the people, well, it's a combination, but it was people that fought, like black Americans that fought for British. They were like loyalists, right? Black loyalists in the American War of Independence. Many of them got passage to Liverpool and ended up homeless because they thought they were coming for economic opportunities. Some that ended up in Nova Scotia. You understand? So, and then you had a few Caribbean people that came over here. They'd been manumitted and they ended up coming here like in the 18th century, and they were like domestic staff. But what happened was white people were triggered by their presence, and there was newspaper articles and other kind of media that was being used to say that, yeah, these people need to go. So when they now start talking about the abolition, they, that's how they founded Freetown. And so they now started deporting people. So those black British people that had American or Caribbean roots, they started taking them. The ones they took to Nova Scotia, they were the next wave. There was a few Maroons from Jamaica, the next wave. And then the last people were the few that were meant to be the illegal captives that got diverted to Sierra Leone. So what I'm trying to say is that those people found themselves in this country trying to survive. There wasn't the means or the apparatus to establish a distinct community. You understand? Even where you
like
did
a
have
homestead,
certain enclaves,
right?
No, you did. Okay, one thing I will say, you know those old school pubs, the ones that like the old school pubs, the ones that you might see like Mary Poppins and stuff, yeah. Those old kind of inns. You did have a couple of them, funny enough, that did have. There was a black community of sorts for a while, but it was mostly men, and many of them had white mates at that point because there weren't enough black women on these shores. Do you see my point? So it's different. What we have now in Britain, or what we have had since the Windrush generation, is an unplanned mass of people. And so because of liberation politics that was happening across the pond, because of just different things that were taking place, right? This idea of Pan-Africanism being a solution against white supremacy or whatnot, this is what's bringing the idea of us all being one. And in some sense, almost dismissing the differences. Do you see my point? So it's now that we realize that a lot of these things are flawed, we're bit by bit trying to make sense of it. And it's a real rabbit hole. This discussion is evident of that. Various other discussions are evident of that. You see my point? So to answer your question, in summary, I do not think that there is anything that can make it static, because even with white people, right, a lot of them are very receptive to their own forms of popular culture, but popular culture has shifted. It's not remained static for them. So what more us? Anyway.
Okay. Good points. Anyone else want to follow up from that?
Yeah, he actually said a lot of great things pertaining to that. It's like migration did definitely play a role in a person's adaptation and way of living in UK, because I know a lot of like Senegalese, like Senegal people. Like I tried it, Senegalese like street food. Most of them they speak Wolof. They don't actually speak French. They speak like Creole and stuff. So like that like colonial mindset has definitely changed the way people interact with each other, pretense and things. So like it definitely did have a role in keeping a person, discarded from. If I was someone living in Morocco and I happened to be black there, then yeah, and I was born there, I would be proud to be called, considering myself a black Moroccan or Moroccan, because like there it's like if you go to like if you look at the Nile River in Sudan and the connection, that the people that built the pyramids of Egypt were black. You see where I'm coming from, Falcon? Like the Nile River of Sudan, and then you see the thing where all the Nilotes and everything were. That's where the Egyptians built the pyramid, because that's literally where blackness is from, Sudan and other aspects.
Okay. Good point. Someone else wanted to come in before Shaw was speaking. Who was that?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I was going to say that in regards to what my man in the upper right corner was saying, I agree with that. And but I do believe that nothing culturally is ever going to be static when you are living in a place where the borders are open to all kinds of cultures. So like London is a multicultural place. So I don't think you can really have anything culturally static because there's so many different cultures mixed in one, you know what I'm saying? And you growing up amongst all of them, you know what I'm saying? But my question really, I had a question to the panel, to y'all British folks, like,
Sure.
What do you guys think? Because in my opinion, this is what I would think would maybe solidify the Black British identity more. Like, what do y'all think the Indians or the Pakistanis are doing that maybe the Black British community is not doing? Or are they doing anything different at all? And what I'm trying to say is that when I was living in London and shit, freaking, you always know like the Indians, the Pakistani, they're like, you find them in all classes, you know what I'm saying? You have the top of the top, business folks. Then you have the store owners, which are also business folks. And then you have, the regular folks. So, the perception of them is always like, oh, strong knit community. They own all the shops and this and that. And, you have freaking Indian fucking billionaires living out there and shit like that. So my thing is, how did they get economic?
That's a good point, because I think you're alluding to business ownership, things of that nature, which we've discussed in previous streams. So what does the panel think with regards to a comparison between the so-called British Asians?
Can I chime in on this one?
Sure.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hey, good evening. Good to have you.
Evening. I actually think there's a real issue, a real problem, especially among so-called Black people, with this romanticization of Asians. I think we have an outside view of looking in and perceive that these Asians are this strong knit, close community, when actually these people do not like each other just as much as Black people don't. They have issues when it comes to culture, ethnicity, and religious differences. They have these issues in their own lands or own kind of parts of the world, and they have them here. I think this kind of romanticization comes from a disaffected place, so where Black people feel very much like they don't fit, or they haven't been able to achieve, or it's that kind of narrative of being incapable or lacking somehow, which contributes to this kind of, I don't know, this belief that Asians are somehow superior or have achieved something that we should aim toward, when actually when you unpick and you look at what's happening within these communities, they are just as disenfranchised, they are just as I guess struggling to hold fast to their identities in Britain just as much as Black people do. They have issues among themselves. I think their ability to progress in, I guess, as I think it's Smooth said, in business and all these other areas is not. I don't think it's exclusively Asian. I think there's lots of things that in I guess inform why they're able to do that. But I don't think that the broad term Asian, if that makes sense, encompasses where they're able to kind of make those strides in business. For example, it's not uncommon for an Indian, Hindi or Sikh man to refuse to hire a Pakistani Muslim. So I don't think it's not a shared experience across all Asians. Bengalis, Bengali people, if you go to Tower Hamlets where there's so much deprivation and poverty, it's full of Bengali people. So
I hear that, and that's something that we brought up before, that these Asian groups are different, and it's unfair that they're lumped in a way. They have a different history in this country, different effect, right? But I just think that when it comes to learning something from British Asians, it's that I always just think about the scene that I have when I go back to Peckham High Street, and I'm seeing all of these hair shops selling weave and extensions and daks and all the Afro picks and stuff run by Asian people. So obviously, I'm just thinking that there is some sort of failing on the Black part, right? In Peckham, of all places, that Black hair shops are being sold to Black people by Asian people.
Falcon, it's really interesting you bring that up, because actually one of the things that has happened to, I think you're right, it's very odd that Black Asians are selling things to Black women. But actually what I've seen happen is that where Black people have tried to advance in that specific, let's say that specific area, so in terms of hair sales and beauty type products, etc., the Asians are actually gatekeeping at the top. So when it comes to accessing things in wholesale and all those other types of you know how retail and businesses work, right? They are gatekeeping. So where Black people are trying to enter into that market or to purchase things, they're not able to. And that's why sometimes they have to sell things at a higher price. And obviously, if you're selling at a higher price, people are likely to go where it's cheap rather than go where it's Black, because this perception of buying Black is not shared among all people. Not everyone, people are looking for the best value rather than supporting a Black person. I think also with the bearing in mind that the retail spaces are often not owned by Black people, even though it's a Black area. So that competition is there in terms of whether or not the owner of that retail space is going to say to you, okay, I'll happily lease this place to you, but knowing that, I don't know, their cousin or the friend of or the brother-in-law of somebody else is selling hair two streets down, it's very unlikely that they're going to want to allow the Black person to enter that space. And I think
is that a bad thing though? Is that a bad thing? And this is general to the panel. I think it's bad to compare.
I think it's bad to compare, and I think it's damaging to compare in those scenarios, because one of the things that we forget when we discuss the Asian group is that actually the Asians are gatekeep, and they can be incredibly racist when it comes to dealing with other Black people. Whatever informs that, who knows? But yeah.
Who's that? No, when she finishes, I just want to answer.
No, I think Diva's finished. Great points, though. Great points that we can, we can speak on. Who was that?
Yeah. Now, just to answer to since she was speaking on the point that I was making, really, I'm not talking about how they get along within each other and all that stuff. It is clear that there definitely are cultural differences amongst what y'all in the UK refer to as Asian as well. Like you said, like I said Indian, I said Pakistani. I know them two don't get along. You understand me? So it's like, that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. Because, like, let me give you an example here in the US. For example, we know that over here, the highest earning Black people in the United States are Nigerian, mostly Nigerian folks, right? Now, to an African American, for example, they just gonna be like, oh yeah, these Nigerians, they all got money and they all got these good jobs and this, that, and the third and all that stuff. But amongst each other, you're Yoruba with your Yoruba head ass, Igbo, I don't fuck with you, and all of that shit. All that shit goes on, right? But again, it's the outside perception of the label Nigerian. It's like, oh yeah, all of y'all are doctors, all of y'all are engineers, all of y'all are lawyers. You understand me? To the point where you might see a janitor that is Nigerian and your perception of him is still going to be like, oh yeah, you probably got a son or uncle or somebody. You got money. You don't really have to be a janitor. That type of shit. You understand? Mm-hmm. So, and it's the same thing with the Asians over what we call Asians. We refer more like the Orientals and stuff. They're like the Chinese, Japanese, and all of them, right? And you have Koreans and stuff, and you have Chinese, and they don't fuck with each other. You understand me? But when you see an Oriental person, you have a certain perception. You have this perception of culture, this, that, and the third. They're so close knit. They only fuck with each other. Business wise, they fuck with each other, and all of that stuff. So I'm saying that I'm speaking on the perception, and that's why my question was, what do y'all think did they do in the UK that
blacks
gives them that leg up, if you will? You get what I'm saying?
Okay. Let's let the panel answer that, because that's a great input. King of Lambeth in the back, I need you to come up in private if you want to come up, okay? Because you're new. I haven't seen you before. But who wants to continue on from what Smooth was saying?
Yeah, he was absolutely correct. You know, a lot of it's usually, I think it's a self-esteem issue within the community. You know, it's just that by numbers, there's the Indian population is quite large, you know, like that's why so many of them migrate and they start setting up, businesses and shops in plazas, but none of them want to have that ego of wanting to be, known or really famous or anything. They just want to do hard work amongst their own communities. I can definitely see that within the Persian, within the Turkish, within Uzbek, and a lot of those communities. They strive. And I don't blame them. You don't really see that amongst
My nigga, you from Canada? You don't count.
Okay. One sec, Smooth. Anyone else wants to jump on what Smooth was talking about on Diva? Are there examples from British Asians, either group that Black British can learn from?
Okay, let me jump in.
All
right.
I always wanted to hear Michael Mutrick's point, because.
One sec, man. Who had the cat in the background, man? King of Lambeth, it's cool. You can turn the cam off if you don't want to come on cam. I can put you up in a sec.
Right. Look. Okay. Now, when it was, this is not an excuse, but I do want to put some base to it. And I bet Diego's probably got more of the cited sources for it, right? But I believe it was in and around sort of let's say the 70s, where I don't want to say racism died down, so to speak, but I think it was maybe less overt in terms of the physical, etc. And from what I hear murmurs of, and I'm again, I bet Diego's got more specifics on it. When it came to things like loans, mortgages, going into the 70s and 80s, I did hear murmurs, and I'm not going to try and pretend I know anything specific, that there was more rejections in terms of financially qualified Black people for certain business loans, etc., which I've heard gave Asians a head start. Whether that's true or not, right? Regardless, we have had enough time to. I don't want to use the word catch up.
Okay, sorry to butt in. But while it's fresh in my head, I just need to ask this, because we've made the comparison before, and I just want to ask this though, because we all know the pseudo scientific racism that Britain pretty much pioneered. you know, if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
And in those instances, Asian groups are usually like the middle person, right? So all I'm asking is that can there not ever be a point in history where, you know, Asian people were favored before African people because of those type of racial dynamics that perhaps
Yeah.
gave them an advantage?
It goes back generations. Even if you look at, for example, you know, in a colonial context, you always need like a buffer group, right? And if you look, for example, whether you're looking at West Africa, like, you know, see Nigeria, you're looking at like Uganda, for example, Asians got access to opportunities in terms of trading opportunities, like middleman opportunities, and they also were privileged when it came down to blue collar opportunities. When Idi Amin expelled many of them, although they changed legislation to restrict obviously entry of non-white people, they gave all East African Asians citizenship en masse. You understand?
Mhm.
And at that point, when they started coming in the early 70s, they got access to credit and they got access to certain economic opportunities. And so they were able to use that, you know, in order to actually build themselves up. This marks the onset of, you know, getting into like the news agency business.
Yeah.
You understand that's why they became synonymous with owning news agents. Patel news agent, not to be like you get my point, the stereotype, right? So that's where that emanates from.
Mr. Singh, Mr. Patel.
You know, and then if you look at, for example, with like business access to credit, capital, that's been an issue for decades. Do you understand? Because and I worked in banking, I worked in different divisions, but from my early days, you know, when I now had access to you know, being able to get decisions, because what happens is you might make an application for a bank account and you might want to get some initial seed capital, right? I found out that I could get discretion for certain applications to be approved. Once I did that, I started basically helping people to access funding. We're not talking about huge sums. We're probably talking about a maximum of about maybe no more than 100K. But I started being able to, because what happened is you get discretion. It gets referred to a team and they ask you certain discussions and there's a certain criteria. Although the criteria looks black and white, there are shades of gray. So if you don't want a black person to get funding, even if they have a watertight proposition, you can get that funding. You know, you put it to referral, you get it rejected. I ain't joking. So within you have your standard underwriting situation, and then you understand within that they can make internal decisions. It happens. It doesn't happen as much as it did, but it still happens. Do you understand? And that's the reason why, if you look at the percentage of black people in this country, yeah, there's 4% of black people. 4% of the population is black people. That means that based on the value of the economy, British black people, if you want to look at them monolithically, their business value is not worth their percentage. They have, in terms of the total economy, business terms, they have 25 billion. That in an absolute figure sounds like a lot, but it's not up to not up to 4%. 4% will put them more around the 80 billion pound mark. You see what I'm saying? And as it stands, the key driver of business, you know, like black businesses is like cosmetics. You understand? It's more so the hair, the beauty, the wigs. That's why wig culture has been thriving, and I don't see any let up on it because of that reason. But essentially, I should add this one thing as well. Because of access to job opportunities, and a lot of black people have faced inequalities, getting mortgages has proven harder. Having clean credit, you know, as much as people can have good habits, that's also been restricted. When you now start looking for business funding, you want to pledge collateral, you're already disadvantaged in securing the collateral in the first place. You see what I'm saying? So there's many shades of gray when it comes to this topic, you know. But anyway.
Yeah, great points, man. Sorry, KB, I cut you from your original talking points, man. So I didn't. Let's let KB finish off what you're saying. I didn't mean to do that.
It's cool. The Diego, you know, I'm glad Diego was cited because I did like point him out. because yeah, he did go into a bit more depth for exactly what I was saying. They did have that advantage, at least, and like Diego, that's why I pointed to Diego, because I know he's from the financial sector, and like he said, it definitely did go on, because I did hear this, without from not any official sources, but I heard it more than enough growing up of this, rejection of access and people with, more than enough credit, deposit, capital, and it was just getting rejected. It was just like there was no logical reason why they should have, but it was just happening. And it's interesting. Diego mentioned referrals. I've heard of that referral thing quite a lot, which is this person, let's have a second look, type of stuff. But and in terms of the question from Smooth earlier, I still think we've had more than enough time, even though I use the words head start in quotation marks, to look at the markets that at least, if not generate money and or profit, that at least can be beneficial, i.e. like the housing market, which I think we're getting better at, to be honest. I believe, especially in the last 20 years, I think Black people have started to get better at getting on the market, and not only getting on the market, but keeping their property. But even in terms of that, I think we're still far behind. I think far too few of us still own housing, and not only housing, but houses. And, I still have yet to meet a family that so let's say there's a family of 5, 2 parents, and let's say 3 children, that no more than the parents and maybe say the oldest child owns their own house. It would be good to get to a stage where each of these children, as they turn 18, 21, 25, own their properties, whether they're doing rent to buy, whether they're doing shared ownership, whether they're doing 5% deposit. I mean, some people not from UK might not understand these terms, but these are different ways to get on the ladder. So
and property is a hallmark of being established, right? That's like a mainstay of being rooted, fundamentally in the country, right?
Definitely.
So could that be like a negative effect? If it is the case, and I've read a lot of stats, it seems to be the case that Black British people, quote unquote, are lacking when it comes to home ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the stats, but that's always
currently now.
All right, King Lambeth, what are you saying?
Bro.
Yeah, as it stands now, we're lacking. We're making lots of progression in this area.
Your sound is kind of bad, bro. Are you outside?
Property, getting up the property ladder.
Your sound's kind of bad, bro.
Yeah,
yeah, it's a bit trippy right now. No, I'm sorry. If you can fix it. Yeah, sorry, bro. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But to be honest with you, man, my camera's about to die. I didn't charge the damn thing. My mic is about to run out of battery, and I'm getting sleepy as hell. So, but I just feel like there's more to unravel with this, man, because it's just one of those topics. Yeah. 1 second, let's hear from Yashua, because you're coming in and out. Is there any key point that you wanted to raise with this panel?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Yeah, so key points. Sometimes when I listen to you guys speak, it kind of wonders, is Britain really... It almost seems like Africans do better in America than they do in Britain, because, with problems with getting businesses, problems with getting businesses, houses, and things like that, it really seems like Britain is just a very sort of crowded place, and it's very hard for Africans to really kind of break in, or just Black British people in general.
So you think America will be more welcoming in that regard?
I mean, it certainly seems that way. You don't really hear about the same sort of problems with getting houses or getting jobs or access to capital here. But I mean, as far as the Black British thing, I would figure the only way to make that somewhat more permanent would be to intermarry amongst each other, because the reason why Black Americans really even call themselves Black Americans was they were a bunch of different nationalities of Black people who just sort of married each other, and they kind of got lost to time what they were, and all they really had was Black, so they just called themselves Black. It was not quite like that in the Black British context, but the closest thing you could get would be if different nationalities and ethnicities of Black people just sort of married each other over the generations, and it just had to be simply reduced to Black. That's the only really way I could see that.
Right. Yeah. That's a point.
I mean, I don't know. It would almost seem to me as if maybe it almost seems like a very kind of temporary identity. Like, I'm not really sure how much permanence the whole Black British thing would have. Maybe I'm wrong, but it almost seems like a kind of fleeting thing. I don't know.
Hey, that's a great point, and it seems to be the case, or you're not far from the fact. When we look back into the history, Black people come here and they go, or they disappear somehow.
It's
Joshua, born 91. Have you heard of the Moors? Are you?
No, Sharian, we can't do personal exchanges, bro. You know how it is. We need to answer the.
Okay. So
okay. But let Diego was about to answer directly. Okay, to the point. We'll go to final thoughts after this, so you can have your say.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of it being a fleeting identity. I mean, I've kind of said it in a few times, in a roundabout way. It is a fleeting identity. It is a reactionary identity. It wasn't planned. You understand? So it's not static, and that's the reason why the popular culture is not static. It's changed. It's why Blackness is now open source for white people, and Black people readily welcome white people in their spaces, and then bitch about the fact that they don't gatekeep. You understand? That's why when I've said decentralized Blackness, it's not just a theory I've come up with. It's practiced all but in name. And the only reason why I've advocated it is because it's to avoid what I would call, where people disrespect difference of opinions, where people are intolerant of echo chambers. You understand? Right. They only want echo chambers, rather. That it's to get rid of that idea so people can feel uninhibited to be their authentic selves, insofar as they're not negatively impacting other Black people in terms of their image or going out of their way to sabotage Black people. Then it's pointless. And I'm saying people practice it already. You get my point? That's why, I've just kind of contoured it and said this is what it is, and why it's important for people to actually acknowledge it. It's because a lot of these discussions will start to make more sense to people, But yeah, look, the identity is not static. It just isn't, It really is not. This is the reason why you have some people that are caught in they're so, I can't even call it double-minded. They're just a confused mess. On the one hand, they believe they're the most pro-Black person that breathing. They believe at the same time that they should be swirling, and that, do you understand what I'm trying to say? They believe that not only should they be swirling, but they can tell the other gender that they can't do it. So do as I say, not as I do. And remarkably, those kind of contradictory positions are validated by a significant number of so-called, skinfolk. So I'm saying that makes it a mockery, and I think it's consistent with the idea that it is something which is imprecise and it's fleeting. It's a label that's been given, and people have tried to ascribe meaning to it because they find the alternative is to be floating. You get my point?
Okay.
If you don't have that strong connection with your homelands, and you can't rely on Black American popular culture. What do? So the whole Black British, Black British, Black British, for some people, I'd say for many people, is reactionary term for Black American. You get my point? So it's almost like it's we are the other, and this is what we are. So yeah. Hear us too. We're Black Brits, and we got this, that, and the other. So it's more like it's a performance.
Okay,
but
okay,
without
great points from
substance.
there. Great points. With that being said, I'm going to ask for closing thoughts, but I'm hoping that we can come up with. I'm hoping that we can come up with what is almost a solution, or what is the, as Diego would say, the panacea. Like, what is the sellotape to this issue, right? With regards to identifying as who you are, or perhaps that we were never meant to, to be here for that long, and we were meant to, be economic migrants, come here and bounce. So I'm asking for closing thoughts with regards to, any sort of solution, or how you personally want to identify as, and, the differences of opinion and its importance. If we can start with anyone first. Don't be shy. Anyone?
Yeah, so like, never try to divide or conquer. Why am I
King Lambert, I think one second, sure. King Lambert, your audio is still kind of messed up, man. So it might be a thing where you have to try in the next stream, bro. Unfortunately, but I appreciate you attempting. But Shah, continue.
Yeah, why? Like, I always wondered, why is there such like a divide and conquer mindset, like amongst like, the community, it's no like hate or anything.
Sure, bro. Is this your closing thought? This is like a closing thought to round off what you think.
Yeah, you should always have pride in what you are. Just don't try to make it a movement like, alt-right movement, remember the last stream I said, how a lot of these pro-blacks, like the things they say online is similar to the mindset of a white nationalist and white supremacist. So, like, I'm saying, like, as long as if you don't take it to that level of like it, then you should be fine. But just don't try to make it into some sort of a cult. Because that's what happened, with Richard Spencer and Jared Taylor, and the media portrays them as white supremacists. Even though I spoke to Jared Taylor recently on the phone, he actually was a very nice man. He said he's Anglo-Saxon, which is like native British, and his family was migrated to Japan, and then they came to America. That's what he told me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Shah, you brought up some good points, yeah? So I appreciate you coming on when you can. Okay, salute to Shah25. Who wants to go next with regards to closing thoughts?
Yeah, I will. Why not?
Sure, JM.
Yeah, there was a lot of badgery going on in this stream, but, it was good. It was good to have different viewpoints, so on and so forth. Now, if black people have an issue with other black people in regards of having their, let's say, they're proud of Britishness, right? First, what they need to do is have some introspection, right? See what they identify as and see what they value. Now, if they got a beef, right, what they should do is make a YouTube channel, right? Hire a ring, right? Like a boxing ring, right? Whoever it is, if it's pro-black, if it's whatever, right? Settle their differences. Give each person a side opposing, right? Big, giant, inflatable fried chicken drumsticks, right? And then smack them over the head with it until who knocks out who, basically, right? at this point, right, I'm done, right? I'm done, because it's like, Jesus Christ, man, can we just live? Like, can we just live our lives? Like, people have ways of living, right? One black person has their way of living. One black person has their way of thinking. Mixed race, whatever, cool. Live your life. Like, I'm not here to tell people how they should and how they should think and how they should live their life. but just give other people the benefit of them having their different viewpoint, right? And that's just that. You know what I mean? That's just really it. Like, just accept people's differences. Stop having these echo chambers and stop shaming people for having a difference of opinion, regardless of how they see things. Because everyone has their experiences. Everyone has their, you know, their traumas, their lived experiences, and how they interpret things. Everybody's different in the end of the day. But that's my closing thoughts.
Right. Hey, great, strong closing thoughts from JM, man. Appreciate that, bro. Good having you on as always. Hopefully in the future, not too soon, we have a collab soon on the topic to talk about in the Discord. So salute to you, JM. It's JM Talks in the building. Hey, feel free to drop your links in the chat. Like, don't be coy to drop your channel link. We will know JM is a content creator, so feel free to do that, bro. So good to have you.
Cool.
Okay. Peace. Who wants to go next with closing thoughts?
I'll go next. First of all, great stream, Falcon. Thanks for having me up again. Everyone, press the like button, share the video, subscribe to Falcon if you haven't. But yeah, my closing thoughts are no problem, bro. You like deserve it, man. I think us African, British, Caribbean, British, whatever, mixed, whatever, we're a bit of a hybrid of culture and nationality and even possibly religion in some people's cases. One thing I do hope people that are, you know, English, British, African, well, and African, Caribbean, you know, and from wherever, then when they hear these streams, is getting some way to kind of understanding, you know, the black people here in the UK that have immigrated to the UK that are children of immigrants, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of the people here. And, you know, as people can probably hear, we don't have a full grasp on it, but well, I think we're definitely a hybrid. I'll definitely say myself, it's definitely that sort of hybrid situation. I like what was brought up earlier. I think it was like Smooth, that we may not have, you know, our own land, but we've kind of got our own, you know, unofficial culture, shall we say, you know, especially, let's say, in the big cities, for example, like I almost feel like London is its own little city in itself and in around. So yeah, I hope this goes some way to kind of understanding us a bit. And, you know, yes, our accent's different. Yes, some of us are African, some of us are Caribbean. Some of us can speak our own languages, some of us can't. Some of us have been home, quote unquote, some of us haven't. So I think we're just still trying to figure this out, especially our sort of age group, because, like, I think, again, with the time situation, the last 4 years has been, you know, not significantly different, but it's, you know, it has been different from, say, the 20 years before that, and certainly the 20 years before that. So it's a different set of people that are just turning in, you know, into like middle age, shall we say. So we're getting there, but, you know, I think we're still trying to navigate this thing. It's taken a while, yeah, but, you know, it's obviously not that simple. But yeah, that's my closing thoughts, and thanks for having me up, man.
KB, man, always a pleasure to have you on, man. Feel free to drop your links as well. KB, another content creator, he does very regular streams, so check it out. Did a great stream yesterday, so go check out KB Jones' channel, man. So appreciate you coming on, bro.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
No worries. Peace. Who we got? Okay, anyone wants to go with closing thoughts? Anyone wants to go with closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, thanks for putting the stream on. I know some of these talking points are not entirely new, but I do think it's important to not have an echo chamber, and that's particularly pertinent when, you know, as KB Jones said, that this is somewhat of a rabbit hole, but because of the current circumstances, it's necessary to venture down it in the hope that we'll basically find a lesson. I think that identity is definitely a sensitive topic. I think it's a delicate one. I honestly do believe, and this is what I find interesting. You know what Jesse just said right now about the badgering, right? Notice how the people who have more nuanced takes on things are more tolerant of, you know, the Thai tropes of, oh, you can't be British if you're black. And then you have those who are doggedly, boom, it's this way and it's the only way, right? And it's cool if that's what the person wants to believe, they're more than entitled to. But why is it that they're triggered when other people who have sat down, reflected on this stuff, and they're making sense of it? Why are you so triggered that they don't agree with you? I think that's a question that some people have to ask themselves, because ultimately
that deserves its own stream, I think, man, because that is the key. What is that? That is volatility. That is, you know,
exactly. Because nothing has been discussed as malicious. There's no malicious intent, and there's strong evidence to support, on a theoretical level, the things that have been discussed. And I think that depending on how much of a premium people place on understanding self and knowledge of self, they would be able to embrace different views, even if those views do not tally with what they are willing to cling on to until their dying breath. So, Guy, I think this was a great stream. Thank you for having me, and look forward to the next one, man.
Anytime, man. Always appreciate Diego for coming on. Jesse McCulkin's posted your link, so Diego also a content creator.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, we are a little community over here. We're showing support, you know, in the little way we can. So I appreciate every one of you, and Diego, man, appreciate you coming on as well. So
thank you, bro.
Catch you
peace,
later.
Man.
Yeah,
definitely.
Peace, bro. Peace. And last but not least, we got from Yahusha. If you can give us with a closing thought, even though, you know, you're not British, but hey, we're cool over here. What's your closing thought with regards to this topic?
Yeah. Sorry, man. My phone is I'm actually surprised it lasts this long. It's at like 3%. I figured it was gonna die. It's been going in and out on me. But
hey, you and me both. This camera is on nothing. This mic is on nothing. So you and me both, man. We're going on magic.
Yeah. So, I mean, you figure every ethnic group is going to have like a few things in common, you know, language, religion, and probably like a shared ancestry. And with the Black British, I mean, they've got the language, they don't have the religion, and they don't really have the shared ancestry. So that's it's gonna make a lot of difference as far as it's gonna make it difficult to really kind of be a cohesive unit right away. I mean, you're talking about it takes, you know, multi-generations to kind of figure this thing out, and you still got, you know, people who are like first generation immigrants coming in. So I mean, it's a work in progress, you know. It's going to take multiple generations, and even when you kind of get something figured out, if there's always new first generation immigrants, you're going to have to kind of sort them into the equation. So you know,
great points, bro.
It's a difficult question. I guess the only way you could really kind of do it, I mean, I would hope you guys would just have meeting spaces, whether they're community centers or this and that, and maybe just sort of different organizations where you guys could just bring people together of different kind of ethnicities. Like, I mean, I would guess for someone like you, I mean, you are Black British, but like really through blood, I guess you would be a Yoruba who is a British citizen.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but I you know, it's just kind of one of those things, you know. It's a work in progress, but I guess only through meeting spaces would you guys really be able to maybe hash it out. That, and, you know, things like, you know, the carnival and stuff like that. I don't know if there could be an African version of that Caribbeans would be welcome to as well. But
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, sure, man. You brought up some great points, so I really appreciate that, man. How do I pronounce your name? Yahusha?
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure, man. I hope you come on in the next streams, yeah? You really provide some insight. So peace to you, and I appreciate you. Yeah?
Oh yeah, you too. Yeah, it's you got a nice show. It's nice to listen to. I'm glad you keep on doing streams.
Hey, appreciate that, man, bro. But till next time, peace, okay? Peace. So with that being said, man, I appreciate everyone who came through on the panel, everyone who showed some love in the super chats. You like the stream, you're going to comment below the video when it's done. I appreciate all of you, man. And, You know, I like to see everyone showing, you know, this communal spirit, you know, posting everyone's links. Do you know what I mean? This is what it's all about. And with what Yahoo Show was saying, you know, those meeting spaces, I would like to think that this is a part of that. You know, I know a lot of people don't take the YouTube serious, but hey, this is serious. You know, we probably don't get the ability to speak like this, right? A lot of us are antisocial and, you know, super introverted. Some of us probably haven't left the yard all day, you know? So it's quite important. And that's part of my motivation for keeping this going. You know, check out the Self-Environment City Discord if you want to, you know, get some behind the scenes information and stuff like that. More information in the description below the video. But with that being said, man, I think it's been a very productive stream. So I appreciate everyone who took part. More videos coming through, you know, edited videos that will be a bit more concise. As always, a stream every Tuesday from 9:30 p.m. You know, I'm gonna try and keep it on cam, you know, because it just gives more presence, you know. But yeah, with that being said, man, I hope everyone has a good week ahead. You know, happy belated Easter if you're celebrating. I've got my eggs in the background. But with that being said, man, good night and peace.